That phrase, you do you, does anyone ever say, you be Bob?
That'd be funny.
You.
Yeah. You be Bob.
Be Bob.
You be Bob. Yeah. You be Jeff.
You be Lee.
You be Lee.
You be Bob.
It's a shadow.
You see a shadow? Oh, yeah. Move the other way. Move the other way. There you go. That's good. No. There you go. That's cool. That's fine.
Still see something.
Mike, can you just talk a little bit more?
Oh, Mike is talking a little bit more. Mike is being a Bob.
How are you today,
Mike is
Bob?
being Jeff. I'm feeling.
How does Bob
I'm feeling very
be?
floaty. I'm feeling very
Bob's
floaty.
floaty?
Yeah.
Bob is very
In the
floaty.
ocean, yeah. Yeah,
Bobbing.
bobbing, yeah.
In the ocean.
Feeling very weavy today.
Black panel.
Very weavy. Very weavy.
Look at
So
the
breezy.
that panel. And
Very weavy.
I was just watching Severance.
Oh yes. You're
Are
caught
you
up?
caught up?
No.
Okay.
No, I have
never
one
mind.
episode left.
Oh, well then you're episode season 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oh
you,
no. Yeah, two.
I don't want to spoil it for
Yeah,
no one
yeah.
else is listening. Anyway, the bobbing for pineapples. What the
Oh, I don't think. Oh, I might not have seen that yet.
Oh.
It's okay. It's okay.
Season 2?
Yeah. Oh, as an activity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's
just, you
why.
must have
That's
seen
why.
that. That's,
Yeah.
what the heck is that all about?
Yeah.
That is not okay.
Yeah.
let's roll everywhere.
Mike, a little more, please.
A little more. Yes.
What was your favorite part of this morning, Mike?
My favorite part, I would say, it links a little bit to our reframe. My favorite part was feeling triggered during a part of the thing, not in a way, because I thought I had a story that the woman was taking a lot of time. Like her song was so long.
Oh, the Irish song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But watching and in my brain, I was like, oh, maybe, what am I solving for? I was checking myself.
I think
a
we
little
all
bit.
struggled with that.
Yeah, okay.
So it was a shared struggle.
was
You
a
were not alone.
Yeah, but then I was just like, but watching them be so present
Yeah.
and then take it and turn it into music I was like, yeah, I was with them on that.
Almost every week they give that lesson. There's always someone who gets up there who
Yeah.
is out of key.
Yeah.
Or one time I went and there was a woman next to me and she kept making weird frog sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like ribbit, like that didn't go with the music at all. And I had to I was like, you know what? This is her way of expressing herself and her way of
Totally.
being here.
Totally.
And then at some point it kind of becomes background and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
you're like, that's the experience.
Yeah, that's the experience. And what we're
Riveting.
there for is not perfection
No.
and performance. We're there for is presence and
Correct. And whatever happens.
and whatever's happened is that.
And
So
sometimes
that's where I
life
check
is
myself.
uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think it was a good reframe.
So that was I felt triggered because in my perfection aspiration for the best experience possible, I was like, well, who else could sing? I knew Danielle could sing. I was
Right.
like, she's taking time.
Good.
Okay.
Can you hold your
Yeah.
hands out here and
Yeah.
clap?
Okay.
Both of us?
1, 2, 3.
Great. Okay, I think we're rolling.
Great.
I think we're alone now.
I think we're alone now.
Doesn't seem to be anyone around. I think we're alone now.
Bum 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 bum. Are we recording?
I think we are.
No, I think. Brian, should we do the look into the camera for the intro? Or George?
You're good however you want to do it. If you want to do it a couple of different ways.
Yeah. So, but should we look at this camera?
Yeah, if you're going to do an intro, look straight into that camera.
Okay.
If you want to do a second take, you can look into this camera. Because this is the wide one that shows both of you.
Oh, we'll look at that. We'll look at
Yeah,
that.
Mike's doing the intro today.
Cool.
So if you both want to do it like a joint intro or something, look into the center camera.
Okay, I'll look into this first, and then we'll do a joint, and then we'll get
Perfect.
started. All right. I think we should do our song. What's our think? Yeah.
What is our song?
Every time they close the door,
I know.
there's
like
a moment
we need
of
a song.
Yeah, I think we're alone now.
Okay, I'll I think we're alone now.
I think we're alone now.
Doesn't seem to be
One
anyone
around. Okay, that's good.
I think we're alone now.
I think we're alone now.
Something, something. I don't know the words to this song, but suddenly. Anyway.
That's good. Okay. Welcome to Reframe. Welcome to Reframe. This is a show about people experiencing time in a different way, at a different pace. We are exploring reframes, which are changes and new perspectives in love, in career, in well-being, and in spirituality. I'm with my co-host, Cyan, and we are playing along. Okay, let's do one more this way. Great. Okay. Welcome to Reframe. This is a show about exploring how people experience time differently. We ask people how they've changed a perspective in love, in career, in well-being, and in spirituality, and we practice them ourselves and report back how we did. Cool.
Cool.
Cyan, how you doing?
I am great.
Yeah, today's a Monday.
Yeah, so we just got back from mystical, magical, or maybe I have it in the wrong order, musical Monday.
Yeah, mystical, magical, musical Monday.
Which we'll get into more, I think,
Yeah.
later, right? We're not going to cover
Yeah,
that right
we won't
now,
cover
but
that full
I'm still
now.
feeling it.
Yeah, I feel more present than I do on a Monday.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a great way to start
very
the week.
grounded. Well, we're going to start with obviously our first question. Give me 3 words of how you're feeling right now. Well, let's ground how we're feeling. So let's do a little. We'll do an inhale. We'll close our eyes in a second. We'll do an inhale, and then we'll top off with another breath just to get it full, and then fully release. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready. Hold on.
Eyes
I gotta
closed.
get ready. Just kidding.
Okay, we're going to do a breath. Top it off a little more. And then breathe out. Okay. How are you feeling, Cyan?
I am feeling happy, silly, dancy.
Happy, silly, dancy. Okay. Cool.
I'm feeling in my body.
Yeah.
But that's because I got the day started right.
Yeah. Playful.
Yeah.
Cool. I am feeling loose. Yeah. Loose, like relaxed loose. That's good. I'm feeling a little nervous, still some nerves. I want to there's a part of my brain that's saying, I want to do a good job. I want to create joy. But in the end, I'm reminding myself I'm going to create joy for myself. And then I'm feeling very centered, very grounded. Maybe it's because of the morning we had. So
I like that.
yeah.
I also like that we admit that we are nervous.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something that a lot of people don't do. It's not like everybody wakes up in the morning. Some people are professional podcasters. We're not.
Yeah, we're amateurs.
We're amateurs.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to acknowledge when you're in the deep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we'll talk more about it, but I love that we're kind of doing improv. I think we know what we want to achieve, but we're not attached to the outcome of what will come out. And this feels like human improv. I guess improv is human to begin with, but
well, everything's improv.
Everything
if we really, really think about it, everything is. But nothing can ever be done truly again.
Totally, including this episode. I'm so excited for this episode. I like how spontaneous it came about. We were going to do a recording 2 Fridays from now, and we had this opportunity. So I'm so excited for our guest, which we'll get to. But I think we have 3 warm-up questions, and then we'll go to our special guest. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, great. Well, since this show is about exploring how we experience time differently and the reframes that help us in that way, I'm curious if there's any moments since we last chatted that you feel like you experience time differently.
Wow, yes. So I've been experimenting with noticing every doorway or threshold that I pass through. And making a mental note of each time that I do so. And the first day that I started doing it, I only noticed about probably 10% of the doorways. And
Okay.
then you're not supposed to judge yourself. It's just at the end of the day, you note, how many doorways did I see?
Yeah.
And then the second day, that number went up. But then the third day, I started noticing them as I approached them. Versus when I'd passed through and been like, oh, doorway.
A realization, yeah.
And now I look back at the doorway and I've started noticing attributes of the door that I never noticed before, including like little paint chips.
Wow.
You know, I noticed that a door that I went under had a canopy, and I never noticed that before. Then I started noticing the air was different. The sounds are different. But most importantly, I noticed that I was transitioning from one scene to another. And I think that is a way that I have found, at least in the last week, of practicing mindfulness on a regular basis, where you build meditation into everything you do. So I'm done for now. I'm going to Bhutan and I'm going to meditate while I'm there because you have to. I mean, you got to try it while you're there, right? But I think I'm going to put, when I get back, sort of the hours-long meditations that I do on hold. Because I'd really like to try to figure out how to drink tea better, eat better, be with my friends.
Interesting.
Better. Now, better is a bad word to use because, you know, just...
maybe more intentionally. Or
more intentionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that has really slowed down time for me and made me aware that that moment is the only real moment and I should enjoy it. I shouldn't be thinking about where I'm going next or what I'm doing next. And most of the time when I noticed that I didn't notice the door was because I was anticipating what was behind it. And what's behind it's always going to be behind it, so why am I thinking about it? Kind of a waste of time, really, to think about it. So... Anyway, that's me. How about you?
Why did you choose this, or maybe it was happenstance, this as a behavior, this doorway?
Well, it's funny because I use ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT to teach me Gurdjieff's fourth way in 365 days.
Okay.
And that's what it started with.
Okay.
So I was like, well, that's pretty good. And so every day I check back in and I journal. And I mean, the ideal thing would be a AI that calls me every day, and then I have a conversation with it, like a journaling AI of some sort that teaches
like
you...
Like autograph, but not for grandma.
But for enlightenment. Yeah, exactly. Not for grandma, but for enlightenment. Yeah. But I was really, really profoundly astounded at like what ChatGPT was dishing, because I was like, this is pretty good. Like you could pick up Gurdjieff and you could pick up these books and you can study them, but to get these little bite-sized things you can do every day is pretty clever.
Cool.
So I'll see how far this goes.
I'm excited to hear more about that. This is good. It's like side quest upon side quest. It's like a croissant, you know, multiple layers of this pastry we're creating. That's cool. I have a side fun fact about doorways. I have a poem I wrote about doorways about 3 years ago. And it doesn't ruin the lead. You know, there's no surprise in the poem. But the idea is that some of the best things in life happen at doorways. And it's the idea that, I mean, think about it. When you're at a doorway, it's representing either a moment of beginning or a moment of ending. And I've had moments where, you know, I've been at home getting and wanting this, you know, some intimate moment with my dad or like something to say to him, but I'm waiting to the last minute. I postpone at the last dinner we have. He's about to send, the Uber is here, you know, and I say that thing I meant to say to him at the doorway, you know. There's the time just becomes, something ends, right, when you're at a doorway. And sometimes those are the most vulnerable moments. So the poem is kind of exploring, you know, you make the move on the girl you have a crush on or the guy, you know, at the doorway.
Or right before
the doorway. Yeah, yes, exactly.
The anticipation.
So I'll bring the poem in next time and maybe in a vulnerability moment. But yeah, that's cool.
I would love that.
Yeah, I've experienced time differently. I'll give 1.5 examples. I think the first one that comes to mind, I shared this in earlier this week, last week. My grandmother, who's 101, passed away. She was 101. She's in Shanghai, and she had dementia. So we knew it for a while that it was kind of going to near the end. And my mom flew out to Shanghai to help and take care of things. She has six other siblings, so 3 brothers, 3 sisters. And I was proud of myself at, I called my mom and like wrote this eulogy for my grandma that I again used translate. I wrote it in English. It feels more emotional to her in Chinese, so it translated into Chinese. And I sent it to her, and I think it was really meaningful. But that was kind of that was vulnerable, but it was, a text. So my wife, Arthi, was like, you should call your mom and like tell her it's going to be okay. And I was thinking in my mind, I was like, of course she's okay. She's handling everything. She's running the funeral. There's a part of me that was raised in this tough way. But of course I called my mom, and she was like, yeah, I'm the one running the funeral. I'm like handling this. She felt she was having this moment of composure. And where time slowed down for me, and I was proud, I'm learning how to hold space better. But I said to her, Mom, like, amidst all this, like, I want to invite you to grieve, to be sad. You're doing a lot, but amidst all that doing, like, it's okay for you to be sad. It's okay for you to grieve your mom. And it was quiet for a second, and I was like, did the call drop? But then I heard my mom crying on the other line, and time just stood still. And I got really emotional, and I started crying. And it was kind of it's not something I'm learning how to hold space for myself and also for people around me. And I was like, wow, I've learned, I'm working on it a little bit, and just allowing someone to feel was a moment. So that was one of my time stood still.
That's really powerful.
Yeah. So I'm really proud of it. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And on a funner side, on the half side, a friend of ours, a dear friend, couple friend of ours, they are doing their trigger shot. They did for yesterday. They were doing IVF. They've been having some challenges, but today it was a big day. And again, my wife and I were like, let's do a prayer, or secular prayer. Mm-hmm. We said God /universe / a lot of slashes. And my wife did the prayer. And in that moment, it was, again, a moment of like, we put our well wishes for them out in the open, and it was cool. It was probably 3 minutes, but it felt like 15 minutes. So it was like, whoa, this is really slow. Anyway.
It is really fascinating how a shift in perspective or a reframe or a different behavior can cause time to expand.
Totally.
And and how when we rush around and we're preoccupied with things that probably ultimately don't matter, how much it slips away.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's really great to share that.
Yeah. So I'm working to, I'm endeavoring to be more present to how I experience time, which is, I think, a piece of how we're exploring this show. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the next piece is one of the appetizers, main appetizers. This is like the savory appetizer. I guess most appetizers are savory to the show, which is past reframe. So in a past episode, Lee invited us to explore reframe around triggers and basically how we show up when we feel triggered, and maybe it coming from a place of not letting the trigger overcome you, but to realize it, recognize it, and come from almost a place of abundance and say, either take a vantage point of, hey, is there something I could shift in my brain, or could I see something great in the other person that I might have not looked at? So I know we're on our journey to test this reframe, so it's not fully finished, but I'm curious if anything has come up for you.
I took away from that reframe, I worded it a little bit differently. I know that it was really hard to actually make his reframes kind of succinct into a soundbite.
Yep. And
so what I got from what he shared was that he is worthy of hearing the words that he has impacted another human being, that he had value and purpose to his life, and that what would get him out of the darkest despair, the darkest hour before the dawn, was caring about other human beings instead of himself. Is kind of what I got. And that he was worthy of hearing the words, I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for you. And I really struggle with this one because I, for a week, tried on because people give me feedback that I have helped them or changed them or done good things in the world, and I don't receive it well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why. And so that's what this reframe really made me focus on was, why can't I accept those words? Like, why can't I? Because I guess I don't want to feel pride, maybe. I don't like to be prideful. And so how do you balance saying, oh, that feels good that I helped, and accepting that it's okay to feel good about it? If that makes any sense. So that's what I got from it. And it was very powerful for me. And I spent a week marinating on it. I like to use your cooking terms. And I'm not more resolved, actually.
Yeah.
I was hoping to come here and be like, I had this epiphany. And no, as a matter of fact, I'm more confused than ever because I'm not sure how we're supposed to receive that information.
Yeah. Interesting.
I just don't know yet.
Yeah.
And maybe someone who's listening can reframe this for me.
Yeah.
In
And maybe
a way
not
that I can
supposed to.
understand, or maybe
What is meant. Yeah, maybe meant to.
I don't even know what the right word is, but
yeah.
But and if you're listening to this episode and you didn't listen to the last one, basically, have you done something for someone that they acknowledged you in the future or recently or whatever? I'm not wording that right. Have you done something for someone where they come back and tell you that it impacted them, and your response to it is kind of to either, in Lee's case, was to rise. And he was like, wow, if I could impact this one person, imagine how many more people I could impact.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to focus on that, and that's going to get me through this dark stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm also not in it. I'm not in the darkness.
Yeah.
And so it's extra hard for me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm glad you raised the sort of a different interpretation. I think I took a more expansive, not literal interpretation of what he's saying, because I know he was directing it at that specific moment. But thanks for sharing that. That makes sense to me. And I just want to acknowledge what you're saying. I think sometimes it is hard to accept the I don't know how great you're at taking. I'm very bad at taking compliments or taking sort of energy where people of deep gratitude or even maybe love, and speaking for myself. And as a result, if someone were to share how they've been impacted by me, I might. I don't know how heart open I fully would accept it. And I think that's a me thing. Has to a journey of self-love and all that, but it's something that I know I grapple with. So hearing him say it, it's like giving himself permission to see himself be expansive and what he's capable of. You need to love yourself first.
Yeah, if this podcast is successful, you're going to hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just going to predict that right now. And because you never know when you create art who you're going to touch with it. Totally. And so someone might come up to you and talk to you about something, and you're going to be confronted with that.
Totally. Yeah.
And I still haven't figured out how to deal with it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. My reframe practicing, my expansive interpretation of it was actually today. I'll give you the most recent cut. Last in, first out would be the accounting term. LIFO would be LIFO. Would be during the show, which we'll talk about with Andrew, our guest. There was a moment where someone in the crowd engaging took a lot of time, and I felt myself feeling triggered and feeling this like shift, feeling something emotionally. And I think traditionally I would have just gone deep into maybe judgment or maybe into criticism of how could this person take this space. And I think that's just me practicing my own patterns of I'm very tough on myself and very strive to be thoughtful and all these things. And so watching this person take up this time for all these crowds, this family from Austin came all the way here. You're taking up all this time for this super long performance. I felt myself deeply triggered. And this abundance that I think I was trying to practice with this thing we did was I was like, well, how do I think more expansively and think more presently? There is no supposed outcome. There's no gold star of the show. Maybe the point of the show is to just be more present, was what I started challenging myself. And I was like, maybe if I show myself more patience and love, how would I express it to this person who's on stage? Maybe they're super nervous. Maybe they themselves lost themselves in the moment. So coming out with that abundance shifted me a little bit and helped me to stay a little more grounded and present. And then watching the people on stage be present and hold that space and essentially create magic and create true joy, I was like, wow, that was what was supposed to happen.
Yes.
And I was like, ooh, cool.
It was a great lesson, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was hard. It was really hard because I felt deeply,
I was bothered.
Yeah, I was like an
and
injustice.
I had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second. One of the things they taught at a previous session was that when you do improvisation, being part of it is having empathy.
Yeah.
And so
Totally.
having empathy for the fact that someone can get up
Yeah.
and perform their heart out to the best of their ability, albeit uncomfortable,
Yeah.
takes courage and strength.
Yeah.
And I admire it so much. But I also was like, wow, that's just taking up a lot of space.
Yeah. And I was like, we have all these new friends, old friends here. It's like, I
Yeah.
want that back to the nervousness even of us on creating this show. I'm like, I want them to have a good time.
Yeah.
What's happening? But then it was a shift. So that was the lesson I think I experienced.
That was a great lesson.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Thank you. This is good. I like that we're building our flow of like the 3 questions. Well, the last one is, I would say, a Cyan classic. This is like the Big Mac of Cyan questions here. So synchronicities. We want to invest. We want to have a space where we talk about synchronicities. I'll let you share why you want to talk about it more, and just to raise anything we've noticed since last show.
Well, I just think coincidences, or I'm using that word for the scientists who are listening, or synchronicities for the woo people who are listening. I think they're magical, and I can't make sense of them. And so people will say, well, it's because you're more open, because you have an ability to notice things more, because I'm mindful. And I'm like, okay, well, yes, but has anyone ever studied what the average number of coincidences that you should experience a day? Because I'm pretty certain I'm experiencing a record number of them. And then when I bring them up to people, which is why I want to share them, I get so many back.
Totally.
And then when I hear them, people always say, you're not going to believe this. And I'm like, oh, actually, I might believe it.
Totally.
It makes me wonder, like, what is all of this? Now, it definitely points to me anyway, like, these just coincidences are just too bizarre, and we'll get into some of them in the show.
Yeah.
That it's just so statistically unlikely. It's almost like a glitch in the matrix.
Yep.
And so I feel like I'm in a simulation.
Yep.
And so I think there's a non-zero chance in my mind. I went from being a full atheist, and you can still be an atheist and believe this.
Yeah.
But I do have a spiritual component, I guess, to what I believe.
Yeah.
But I think there's a non-zero chance we're in some kind of simulation or something bigger than this.
Yeah.
Because I can't make sense of it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you about a few of them that I experienced recently.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
So on December 4th, I messaged my friend Robert, who lives in Pacific Grove. And so I told him that I was going to assign the monarch butterfly to him, because that's where the monarchs go, where they nest. And they have a migration, and they stop in Pacific Grove. And so my friend Robert owns a hotel there, and I'm very fond of him. And so I thought, well, I want to remember him more, and I want to be better at remembering people I care about. So I'm going to start assigning them an animal. And when I see that animal in the wild, I'm going to message them right away. I am not going to hesitate. So I declared it. I was doing it secretly already. So one of my friends is a praying mantis. And because you want to pick a rare animal.
Yeah.
Like when you don't, like a squirrel, you don't want to do a squirrel. Unless you want to be texting someone all the time obsessively, you don't do squirrel. But I picked the monarch because of, where he lives. And I declared it to him rather than keep it secret as an experiment. And he wrote back, he's like, oh, that's so sweet. Well, fast forward to about February 22nd. I was down in LA walking down the street, and I see a monarch. And I'm like, aha! And I pull out my phone. I'm like, it's the moment. I'm gonna message him. And he wrote back and he said, well, Cyan, you're not gonna believe this. And I'm like, ooh, I love it when people start.
That's when the good stuff is. Yeah.
You're not gonna believe this. Yeah. I'm at the post office mailing you a rock that's shaped like a turtle and a keychain from a road trip he was just on. And he had been sitting on it for months. And for whatever reason, right when I see the monarch, he's in the post office writing my name on an envelope Okay, make sense of this. That's just magic.
Yeah.
I mean, if there is a God, and I'm going to say if,
Yeah.
God is a scientist and a poet and a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of this stuff is so funny. I mean, I can tell you about the hollow one.
Sounds kind of like our upcoming guest a little bit too.
Yes.
Just keep going.
Our upcoming guest is amazing. But the second one was I was in Hawaii on our retreat, heading back in the airport, and I found there was a tchotchke store in the airport. I don't know if you remember it, but there was amazing socks there. So I bought these Planet socks, and I wanted them for my friend Jeff, and I sat on them for a long time. And I basically, at some point, was unpacking something and found the socks and decided to mail them to him. And then I was with my friend Lawrence, who received a package, because I met him through Jeff, from Jeff, and he opens it up, and it's a package of Planet socks. The same ones that I sent to Jeff.
Wow.
The exact same socks.
Wow.
Just different, slightly different color, but same socks. And I was like, you're not going to believe this, but I sent Jeff socks. It's like, what?
Yeah. It's
like,
interesting.
It makes...
And we're not trying, again, the intent here is to acknowledge and to observe. I don't think we're trying to make bigger meaning out of what the thing is.
Just observe it. It's just all about observing.
Totally.
And then I have one last one. Have you experienced any?
Yeah, mine is, well, I want to hear yours.
Okay, well, all right. The other one that happened in LA was, it turns out synchronicities or coincidences can build.
Yeah.
Kind of like a joke that keeps going. So a couple of summers ago, I was in Beverly Hills and I was in my monster truck and I was playing the Beverly Hillbillies because that's funny. And I was going down the street and the windows were rolled down. It was kind of hot outside and I see this guy walk by with a yarmulke and he's talking to a friend. And he goes, Shabbat Shalom, homie. And I just started cracking up and I'm like, that is funny. All right. So I started telling all my friends that, Shabbat Shalom, homie. Well, a year later, I go down to the same street corner and I'm reliving the moment in my mind and I'm laughing. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I love this story. And I open my eyes and there's a rabbi in front of me. I kid you not, an actual rabbi. And he's holding a little girl's hand. And he looks at me and he says, Shabbat Shalom. And I lit up because I was like waiting for someone to say that to me. It's never happened because, I'm not of the faith. I'm not Jewish. So no one just randomly comes up to me and says that. And I go, oh, Shabbat Shalom, homie. And and he looks at me and he starts laughing. And he's like, are you of the faith? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, I've just been waiting for someone to say that to me. And I'm so happy. And so he turns around to the little girl and he tells her about, this interaction with me and what he can and can't do in this interaction based on their faith. And he says, well, and I'm going to butcher this. I can't ever say this word right. But he said, would you like some challah?
Challah.
Challah. And I was like, I've been waiting for some challah for all my life. And he looks at me and he goes, what? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, have some. And I'm like, great. And I remember skipping home. And I was like, I've got challah. And I was so excited. Everybody was so happy for me that day because I got challah. But anyway, I was telling our dear friend Eric Lewis about this. And he goes, oh, Cyan. And he goes, I should go out there with the piano on the street corner. I've been waiting for some challah for all my life.
Nice.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, that's great.
You see where it's going?
Yeah.
Well, this last time I was in L.A., I looked the street. The name of the street is Camden.
Okay.
That's where Eric grew up.
Okay.
So another weird coincidence. So I messaged him. I'm like, Eric, didn't you grow up in Camden?
Yeah.
And he's like, yes. Yeah. And I sent him a picture of it. And I'm like, this is where the challah corner is. And it's like, so it's a building.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing. It's like, wow. The coincidence
once you
just
start noticing one, totally.
Keep adding.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened yet. So that's a new occurrence.
That's a really good one. I'll share a quick one, then we'll bring on Dr. Andrew.
Dr. Andrew.
Mine is a little bit of a croissant, kind of also a sandwich coincidence. We need to come up with a term for what is building coincidences, like stacking.
Yeah, stacking.
You shared and that you've been realizing that clothing has energy. And today, I don't know if it's a synchronicity. Well, I think it is. I put on this and a t-shirt underneath. And I was like, I felt something felt off. I was halfway out the door and I went back upstairs and this green sweater sort of felt, I don't know, I saw it. It called to me. I put it on, and I wore it out here. And today is St. Patrick's Day. And again, this is not being like, oh, it means anything, but it was calling to me in my closet. It was just kind of like, wear me.
Wear me.
Sounds like, Kermit the Frog.
Wear me.
This
Won't
green,
you take me
this
with
green, this green sweater is a Kermit the Frog voice. But it told me to wear it, and I wore it, and I was like, Cyan says that clothing has energy. Yeah, this is the clothing of energy. So that's a small synchronicity, but I think the more we talk about it, I'm excited to hear our listeners'
I love that.
Vibes.
And where that came from is one day I declared to Mike that my clothing talks to me.
Yeah.
And that it's been begging to leave the house lately.
Yeah.
I too had a green sweater.
And you had a green
to me today, and it also has strawberries on it. And a friend of mine, Kevin, brought me back a $20 strawberry, and so there's a fun little coincidence in the sweater.
19, technically 19, but with taxes.
I'm rounding up. Sounds more
with
impressive.
Taxes, yeah, $20.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this is a good opener. I love this.
So should we conjure up Andrew?
Yeah, we conjure up Andrew. Do you want to do a little intro of Andrew, of what you know of him as a human? It doesn't have to be everyone can look up his LinkedIn, but how have you experienced him as a person before we bring him on?
Yeah, so I met Andrew at an event where he was a public speaker. And, I guess it wasn't public. It was a private event in which he was a private speaker.
Private speaking.
But what really struck me was when I really met him, when we did one of our events on Weird Wednesday. We had a movie screening in which we screened The Matrix. Mm-hmm. And when Neo is presented with a red or blue pill from Morpheus, we stopped the film. And this is a lot of Mike's brilliance and genius. The house lights came up and they were shining. There was a spotlight that shined on this telephone. And it started ringing, and it rang until someone from the audience ran to pick it up. And that someone was Andrew. And I mean, anyone could have picked up the phone, but Andrew, I'll let him tell the story if he feels like it, but felt called to it. And that evening, we got to experience time shift. And it was the first time that I realized that you can, just like a magician, create an experience for somebody that causes time for them to behave differently and becomes indistinguishable from magic. And so that was a phenomenal evening for me, one of the best nights of my life. And I think of his and his wife's as well. And but that's what I will always remember about Andrew. Even though we met before that, I think we really met that night.
Great. I'm so excited. And I learned that Andrew Mayne is his stage name.
Oh, I did not know that.
We should ask him about it, but should we conjure him in?
Let's conjure him in.
All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, Andrew.
Up you go.
Great. Thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you.
That's a good opening.
The headphones help.
Yeah. Here you go, Andrew.
They put you in your own little world, and everybody's gone, which is really nice.
Great.
All right.
The doctor is in.
Yeah.
Doctor is in.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that.
Neither did I.
We can start there.
Yeah, I don't know. This is new.
You can make up something. You're the doctor of
Yeah.
fun. A PhD in fun. That would be a PhD worth having.
I'm sure somewhere you could write that program.
I am Dr. PhUN.
Here comes my producer.
I love that.
And Roshni, is it Roshni? Roshni? How do you pronounce it? It is Roshni. Roshni.
We just call her Rush.
Yeah, Rush.
Well, yeah. Okay. Roshni.
Thank you.
Roshni. Okay.
And then this is obviously recorded. We can edit anything.
Yeah, we'll play it. We'll give you the
So-
content.
Fucking great.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll give it to you afterwards with
Yeah.
the transcription. And if you're just like, I don't want to say that, then we'll just take it
Okay.
out.
All right. Let us know when you're ready, George.
Let me blow my nose. Sorry.
No apologies in this space.
This is terrifying, by the way. It's fine. It's good. It's gonna keep me on my edge.
He's never gonna let you sleep.
No. This is like pareidolia personified. This is like.
Explain parrot. Well, I've never heard that word.
You have. It's when you see faces.
Oh.
You see patterns form faces. You wake up in the middle of the night and maybe you see a face in like clothing or whatever, or you see looking at wood and you see that.
Okay. I have seen that a few times.
Yeah.
I'm not good at that.
I used to get sleep paralysis. And when your brain, we're pattern seekers, the first thing your brain does, it tries to recognize what's around you. I remember living in Japan. I woke up one night and I had sleep paralysis and I just saw like this character in my closet with a long, thin nose and you can't move. And it was just like, I had to learn a lot about that.
So he looked a little bit like this guy.
Yeah. This is like the Danny DeVito version.
Oh, dear. I'll never look at him the same.
Yeah.
It's my favorite artist who I'll tell you about later.
It is quite the piece.
Let me know when you're ready, George. No rush.
I hope you're keeping these
I'll take
Okay.
a picture of them, yeah.
because these are pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Feels a little more like improv if we do it live, even though we know what we're gonna say. All right, ready? 1, 2.
What the hell just happened?
There you are.
Andrew, welcome. Welcome to Reframe.
Yeah, welcome. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being brave and coming on.
Yeah, and we need to correct this for the audience. Andrew Mayne is your stage name, or is your...
Mayne is my middle name.
Okay.
So I always, when I was first started performing, I had a friend whose father was an entertainer, and when he heard my name was Andrew Mayne, my middle name, he introduced me to everybody in his high school as Andrew Mayne to other entertainers, and that just stuck.
Yeah.
So, and having a father that was in law enforcement with his name, who went after like terrorists and gang leaders, having a different name than him seemed like a good idea.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And what do you perform? What do you do? For those who don't know you, like...
So my background was originally a magician. So I
Okay.
did magic for a number of years. So I had a TV series on A&E called Don't Trust Andrew Mayne. I had a Shark Week special called Andrew Mayne Ghost Diver. And so that was a long time ago. It was kind of right after high school. Instead of going to college, I thought, what if I traveled around the world performing magic?
It was fun to watch them on YouTube. We got a lot of good stuff on YouTube still.
Oh, yeah.
All the episodes.
Yeah.
I was watching a couple feeding my
You have
daughter.
magic trick kits too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I heard.
I loved creating, and so I wanted to kind of make a name for myself among magicians. So I became a magic creator, and so I worked for Penn and Teller, created stuff for David Copperfield, and worked with like David Blaine, and so that was kind of an entry point for me. Was somebody who loved to create, was to create magic for other people and write magic books and DVDs and put that out there.
That's so cool.
That's cool. Yeah. One question, just so we can build the ethos that is Andrew. I've experienced you as someone who is really curious, definitely very intellectually driven, and also growth driven. You seem to want to better understand yourself and also try to evolve your current understanding and build self-awareness. For you, how would you describe your superpower? I know there's technical terms, there's science communicator or whatever, but if you were to synthesize it for a 10-year-old, let's say, like, what is the Andrew Mayne superpower? How would someone understand your zone of genius?
Well, I don't know if I call it zone of genius, but curiosity is literally, if you're interested in something, keep pursuing it. And I've been fortunate because, as you know, I've had kind of several different career paths, and those come from while doing something else, all of a sudden I become interested in something that leads to something else. The magic was because I loved psychology, I loved building things, I loved how we're fooled, and I loved critical thinking. And critical thinking kind of led me in a journey working in the world of kind of like science communication and critical thinking, et cetera. And then eventually that led to artificial intelligence, et cetera. So I'm very much a believer that like your curiosity is the clue. The thing that you keep asking yourself, if you keep finding yourself going back to something. And I've been doing research and following something that started from, I was asked by Sam Altman to get the rights to and do a new adaptation of a book by Arthur C. Clarke called Profiles of the Future. And it was written about 1961, and Arthur C. Clarke, one of those, brilliant science fiction writer and kind of prognosticators of the future, had a chapter in there talking about what if you could compress or expand time. And that stuck in my head as I started thinking about what could you learn, what would you do, and all of that. And I would say that intellectually, I've been following that journey for over the last 2 years of just that chapter alone, making me think about that.
I'm going to need a note on that book. I need to read that book.
Yeah.
I can
very
arrange it.
topical. Yeah, I would love that. That Arthur C. Clarke has come up to me several times, speaking of coincidences, in the past week.
He was, he wasn't just a science fiction writer. Remember, he was the person, he came up with the idea of the geostationary satellite. He was a person that thought very much of what the world might be like that we live in. And I would say that it was, and sometimes the best clues, because I get, I do consulting work and I get asked a lot, like, what do you think is going to happen next? And I said, sometimes the best answers aren't today or for 2 years ago, it's 20 years ago or 30 years ago, because we get too fixated on the pattern of we see right now and thinking that the future is going to be some form of today, but it's also going to be some form of what was going on 30 years ago or 50. And so that's what I like reading, his sort of theories on stuff.
What are you curious about right now? Like, what kind of rabbit holes are you going down?
Having spent the last 7 years on artificial intelligence and watching this rapid takeoff and looking at the adoption of ChatGPT and AI into work and into the economy, I'm very positive, but I'm also concerned that people who sit still may miss out. And maybe somebody has a right to sit still, and that's fine. But I think a lot about how do we communicate? I've been very fortunate to kind of reinvent myself a lot of times, and I think that's what more people are going to have to think about, and how do you get people to do that?
And if they get left out, do you mean like they won't be using the tools or understanding the tools that are around them, or what do you mean by left out?
It could be in a lot of ways. I think it can be, it can be economic. I think that if all of a sudden, you find out that you're an industry that got replaced more quickly than it would have, and now you're thinking, how do I fit in this world? How do I have traction in this world? I'm concerned about that. I think that, I think that's part of the big of it. Part of it is really to figure out, like, how do we continue to have traction? It doesn't mean everybody has to be technological. It doesn't mean that, but just sort of understanding how things have changed.
Well, our show is about reframes. And so I'm wondering if there's a reframe here around, because I get asked this question a lot, especially from young people. They're like, why am I learning this? Because every future I can imagine for myself is going to be displaced by a robot,
my theory on that is, and I'm writing, and I did an article a while ago that was talking about how I think that in a really high growth economy, that probably there'll be really high employment. I think everybody could fit into that kind of economy. But people ask me a lot, like, what kind of jobs would there be, whatever. And I don't want to fall into like having to predict that. But then I started to think, what are the trends of that? And, I have a friend, Rosh, and I backed his film. He's just had a premiere at South by Southwest, young director. And I talked to him about technology right now, and he's doing great. He's got great reviews, whatever. And I was talking to him the other day, and he says, well, I mentioned something about tech. He says, well, maybe eventually you'll convince me to go into tech. I'm like, no, I'm not convincing you to do that at all. I think you need to follow your path. You're doing a great thing. I think you just have to be mindful about the future. And we can talk about, people go, oh, what happens if robots can do everything? Like, I think they can do intellectually and physically just about anything we can imagine, but are you going to want to send your kids to a kindergarten run completely by robots? No, you might want some robots there to do healthcare and tutor and maybe help out. If I were to go to a hospital in the future, I want a robot to diagnose me, I want a robot to operate on me, but I want a human to hold my hand, and I think we have to start thinking about what are the roles that people play. What is the occupation of a human? And it's more than just a thing that you can do with, a trillion parameters, et cetera. So I think a lot about that, of, more like, what are the roles we're going to continue to fill? And I'll just side note, like, the point I bring up is 98% of all jobs right now are bullshit. And that happened with the industrialization of agriculture. The most important job on the planet is farming. If farmers quit, we're screwed. Civilization ends, right? But 1,000 years ago, 98% of everybody was a farmer. And over time and rapidly, those jobs went away. And I'm sure the first people to look at a plow were like, oh my God, what do we do? We're out of work. What are we going to do with our time? Now that seems like a silly, trivial question. And I think that's going to be true of the future. But getting from here to there, I think takes a lot of thinking.
Yeah, I'm hoping we come up with the right reframes over time.
Yeah.
I've been trying to, especially the artists around me, to describe it as a new brush. I watched Will.i.am speak recently, and
He's great.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm a digital native. He's like, my instrument is Pro Tools, and I'm going to push every AI thing I can to its limit because I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
And his excitement is contagious, but it's a reframe. It's I actually think AI is going to destroy a lot of egos,
Yes.
and I'm here for it.
Totally.
I think it's good for us.
I had a conversation with Will.i.am.
Or evolve, destroy, or maybe evolve.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think in
maybe.
order to evolve, you must destroy.
You got destroy.
Yeah.
I had a couple crazy conversations with him. And number one, he was on a video call and talking about him something AI, and then he goes into his warehouse where he's got some secret project he's working on. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I'm asking this. And I'm watching him engage in like 5 different things at once. And this guy is really highly actualized. And I thought about this, like that's why he's excited about these tools, because he needs, these are amplifiers,
Totally.
He as an artist, as a musician, he understands that music isn't just notes, it's personality, it's brand, it's who you are. He's a person that gets that. And I think that's a thing that we could all sort of take a cue from. As a writer, people are like, oh, what if AI could write a book? I'm like, yeah, I'm convinced AI will write a better book than I do, but I love reading Stephen King, part of it because I like the idea there's this crazy eccentric guy in Maine writing these stories. That's part of the value.
Totally.
So, people go to a Taylor Swift concert, it sounds better at home.
Totally.
But there's something we were in experience today with a room full of people that was an improvised experience, and I think those are the kind of way of the future.
Yeah. I want to get to that in a second. I love that. I would love to ask you to clarify. I'll tell you a story first, and then maybe clarify. You're talking about as humans, if 98% of the jobs are bullshit, or your term, I'm curious, what are the human anchors that we should be encouraging people to explore, and where they should double click on. My initial exploration of that, as I again work to be more present, I was in Austin a couple weeks ago, and I was at a restaurant. I was eating by myself to recharge my batteries a little bit, and this person sat next to me, and I could tell by the way she commanded the menu. She ordered like 5 things, sushi, 5 pieces of sushi. She was very clear on what she wanted. I could tell that she was in hospitality. And at first I was kind of trying to, respect her space. She was dining alone. But I had a glass of sake. So I was like, oh, do you work in food? And she told me she was a pastry chef at the sister restaurant, the place that she was at. And she kind of went down this 20-minute rabbit hole about what it is to make the best croissant. And she's like, to make the best croissant, the best bakers, you touch it and you know how much butter or fat content there is. She said she just went to SF and went to 20 bakeries and cut 20 croissants in half to look inside to see the different layers of the croissants. And she's coming back. I think she wants to create like Austin Boulangerie or something in Austin. And I say all this because I think for me, as I was thinking about, we were talking about the future of learning later on that week. And it was kind of like, for me, it's like in a world where intelligence and intellect is cheap, what do you want to choose to go on the long road to learn? Persistence becomes more expensive in some ways. And what do you want to choose to be persistent on to do the human experience of cutting 20 croissants and exploring that? So it's just something I've been chewing on of just like, that's the choice. So someone needs to know they want to perfect this craft of baking, and then they pursue it versus default to these other things. So anyway, that's a longish story, but I'm curious, as you think about the humanness of what people should explore, how do you, what's a frame they could take?
Well, I think you hit upon something there, is that when I talk to people in SF and AI, we tend to look at things like a spreadsheet. We look at it scored this on an eval, did this at MMLU, and we do this. And then you find out like which AI do people like to work with, and sometimes you find out it's not the one with the highest scores. There's something else. There's a vibe to it. There's something else about that. And I think eventually be able to quantify a lot of those things, but there's still the thing you're left with those experience. And if I went to that person ran a bakery, if I went there, I would be very interested to try those croissants. I'm sure statistically speaking, I could create something with science that might be in theory better, but it doesn't have that narrative. It doesn't have an experience of that. And so much of what we do, you think about this, like when you look at people to partner with, you don't just look at their LinkedIn. and run at the table. You try to understand, is this somebody you want to work with? When people go through a trajectory, you think about, you take, Charlie Munger's a fascinating guy. Here's Warren Buffett's partner, spent his entire life figuring out how to build wealth, and the latter part of his life figured out how to give it away, and under some sort of odd, weird sort of things, because his values became more important. I lived in Japan, and business meetings are, decisions there could be based entirely upon how well you vibe with them doing karaoke. And because you sort of say, okay, we're going to make money, we're going to succeed. How we succeed is going to matter a bit more. And I think you see that a lot of people, in tech, or people who come into money at some point, then they start to go, okay, my goal is not to make more. My goal is to enjoy it more. My goal is to explore my values, and I think those values become very critical. You start companies with people you want to work with, because you'd rather be around them than a bunch of people who are just ruthlessly trying to pursue something.
Who you choose to, instead of have to, totally. Yeah. Should we talk? I mean, it's a good segue.
It was a great segue.
I'm curious. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you chose to get into today, before we get into your reframe?
Well, I kind of want to. Oh, the thing that we went to.
Yeah, but no, you go. See if there's a thread. I want to honor if you have a riff.
So I guess one, I'm honored that you would, and I think it's because of the experience we had with the Matrix movie that maybe you trust me. I didn't harvest your organs the first time.
Non-zero chance. I was worried about that.
Yeah. I remember in the car, it was really funny because you got in the car and we whisked you away from the theater. And the first thing you joked about, you were like, are you guys going to harvest our organs? Like, what's going on? It was fantastic. But yeah, and I love, what was your feeling?
To say, Cyan and Scott are dressed all in black, like Matrix. But again, it was a very.
Let's start at the beginning there, actually, because
a lot of context there.
Having been the set designer of that, but not getting to experience it, could you describe maybe your own words? What did you
because I have not heard your
day?
experience. I know mine.
Andrew,
So we get an invite to go to something called Weird Wednesday, which is the guy who's owned WeirdThings.com since the 1990s. Okay, I'm into this. And we find out, we go there, it's going to be a showing of The Matrix, a movie I love. And we show up and we see a number of the Long Journey crew are really dressed up Matrix style in some of the audience. And like, feel like, man, I should have, dug out my goth clothes for this. And, we go into the theater and it very much kind of fits the vibe of The Matrix too. Kind of like, downtown, a little rundown, beautiful theater, but it's not, not Cinemark, in all the best ways. And at the beginning of the presentation, you guys do something which I love, which is you basically say, hey, let's talk to the person near you and have a conversation. And we were asked to sort of talk a bit about, I forget what the starting point, but it led to my wife, Rush, and I talking about agency and talking about, Matrix is about making a choice. Do you stay in this, what you think is the normal, comfortable world? Do you take the risk, whatever? And, I think the environment was very interesting. And one of the things, I always try to sit down kind of closer to the event. In a really long theater, you'll see people kind of cluster towards the middle. As a performer, I'm always trying to be mindful if somebody's going to speak up there, because you don't want to have that big trench between you and the audience. So when we walk in there, I kind of moved us closer towards the edge because I wanted to hear and be present in that. And, we had this conversation, and, my wife and I love to talk about philosophical things. We love to have that, but it's neat when there's something new comes in to sort of talk about that. And we talked a bit about the idea of, how do you not be an NPC? How do you not do that? I think that's the thing I spent a large part of my life was trying to think about, how do I have more agency in my life? And every time I've figured out a way to express more agency, I've been rewarded by that. And so the movie starts. We have popcorn, candy. You guys basically we're sitting there. I've got my red vines, everything just full of all candy. I was eating the movie, deep into the movie. And then it gets to the scene where Morpheus presents Neo with the choice, and the phone rings, right? The phone starts to ring. He's given the red pill or the blue pill, and they just see a phone starts to ring up on stage. I'm like, well, that's odd, and part of me, I remember in the movie The Master, where he has sort of like the kind of the Joaquin Phoenix character kind of hallucinates. He's in a movie theater getting phone calls from him or whatever, and like I see the telephone there, and I'm curious, but also I don't want to take an opportunity from somebody else. So somebody else is eager. Because I stopped and I looked around to see, is anybody else going to answer the phone? Yeah. And everybody else was watching the phone.
Yes.
And I realized it's a situation where people are waiting for permission to do something.
Yes.
And I think sometimes it's important to understand, don't ask for permission.
That's right.
You know, and so I got up and I used a brain. I hesitated and I looked around. Nobody else was getting up. So I'm like, all right, I if somebody wanted that experience, whatever, to figure out who was on the call, what was going on there more, totally fine. But nobody did. So I ran over, picked up the phone, and there was Cyan. And Cyan says, hey, you know, you have a choice. You can leave the theater now. And at first I'm like, what did I do wrong? You know, or, you know, you can sit and enjoy the movie. And it is a little bit, you know, it's a dark theater. It is slightly ominous. And you know, I'd met, you know, Cyan and Scott before, but I don't really know at this point Cyan and Scott. So, you know, it's kind of like this point, and I look over and I see my wife with the candy and the popcorn, and I'm not, you know, I'm at the point in my life where experiences are much more interesting when I'm with her, you know. So I said, can I bring my wife? And the answer was yes. So I said, okay, I will go on this. And so she's sitting there. She goes, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, coming up. And so she's got all of her food and stuff, and we don't know what to do. So we pick up the popcorn and her coffee and all this, and everybody else.
I distinctly remember that the two of you had all this stuff.
Right.
I can't. It's like a screenshot memory.
We didn't know what we were supposed to do. And so everybody else is looking at us going like, what's going on? I think I'm making some joke like, oh, we got asked to leave. We got kicked out, you know. And so we go out there, and there you and Scott are with the SUV, and we're like, all right, you can come with us. Or, you know, we're like, okay. And we get in there and like, hey, what's going on? Like, I have a friend that got kidnapped in Colombia.
I like where this is going.
He, a magician, very, very, really talented guy. But he went to the airport. Somebody had a sign up with his name on it. Follows this guy, gets into the car, goes over to some house in the middle of nowhere, watches a soccer game, eats some, you know, drinks some beer, eats some beer nuts, whatever, while watching the game, while somebody else is in the background on the phone making phone calls and stuff. And then they get back. They said, all right, come with us. They get him in the car. They go drop him off in the middle of the city. He's like, what happens? Another car pulls up and says, oh my God, we got you. Like, wait, what happened? He goes, you were kidnapped. And he didn't. It was basically like the most low-key, casual kidnapping ever. So it's kind of in my back of my mind what's going on here. But it ended up being, you know, turned out that we got to go to a wonderful pop-up, which was this.
Which took like 15 minutes to get there. So there was like this wonderful time where every minute seemed to like be like not expanded. For me, anyway.
Yeah, and because we're like, where is this going to end up? You know, is it going to, you know, in an alley? You know, and so.
And the answer is yes, in Chinatown with like the lanterns.
Yeah, because you were asking us about, you know, what motivated us. I said, well, we were talking about not wanting to be NPCs. You know, like the idea of not being an NPC. So the car pulls up, stops. We look out the window, and there is an office that says NPC Realty. And we're like, wow.
You went all out.
This is a very elaborate setup. And so, fun fact, years ago in ancient history, I did a TV show, Don't Trust Andrew Mayne, which is a prank show. And I would play pranks on people, and some of them were very elaborate. We once played a prank on somebody who loved Legos. So we took over an entire warehouse in Los Angeles and made a whole giant Lego maze and whatever. Brought him into, he didn't know it, I brought him into a little office that had like through means of magic, when he opened up the door again, he was trapped in this maze. And so in my mind, these things happen, you know, because I've done them to people, but this was I've never been on the other side of something like that. So we see that or this, and then we get out there and we go into the restaurant, and then it turned out to be the best thing of all was that we got to have a wonderful dinner and talk to you and Scott. And that was a wonderful.
It was incredible. Like getting to know you as friends in that way was really fantastic.
Yeah.
And I called NPC Realty, by the way. I called them because I wanted to know what NPC stood for to them, and they wouldn't answer. They said they said we cannot reveal the name of our client.
Oh my God. Okay.
And I was like, okay, this is getting weird.
We gotta check
okay,
that out.
NSA.
Yeah, right?
Was there a reframe for you that came out of that night, or for the two of you maybe?
Yeah, I think that certainly, you know, I've said this before, is that we'll talk about this today. Like, I am a person that somehow is cautious. Like there is a person in me that wants to be the showman, and we had an experience earlier today where we saw somebody who really wanted to be that. And is always in my head, I'm always self-correcting and trying to like don't give a show when nobody wants a show. You know, don't leap in front of the crowd when nobody wants to in the crowd. But also, don't be afraid to stand up, raise your hand, and participate to keep something going. And it's always trying to find that balance between things. And so I'd certainly say that was like, oh, should I pick up the phone? Should I be this? Should I go do there? You know, and so, but I would say the reward for me was, you know, read the room. It was Weird Wednesdays.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think we're going to go to one of the things I want to, before we get to your reframe, and you wanted to share a couple today, I think,
Yeah.
right? I think it's important for the audience to understand who you were before each one.
Okay.
So we're going to take a snapshot in time and time travel back to a point in your life and describe who you were before it happened.
Yeah.
What kind of person were you?
A scoundrel.
Scoundrel.
You know, my first real conscious one, 28, and I had gotten pretty far in life through luck as an entertainer up until, you know, I'd quit magic when I was like 22, 23. Being tall, like I lived in South Florida, and being tall and thin and to magic was easy for me to get work on cruise ships because they could put me into like a chorus line with a bunch of dancing girls and I'd do illusions and stuff. I didn't have to have any talent at all. And I got pretty far on, you know, a guy that liked to build illusions could build my stuff and then go, you know, dress up nice and go on stage and go do that. And then I'd gotten into, you know, a really great opportunity working with James Randi and the James Randi Foundation and managing his $1 million prize. And that was kind of, you know, my father knew him, he'd been a friend of the family. As a person who loved magic and loved science, it was kind of a neat role. But that was kind of fell into my lap kind of thing. And I remember, you know, I was like 27, 28 years old, and I had this realization. I was a flake. I never did anything hard. If it was easy, I would do it. If it was hard and it took sustained work, if I had to wake up in the morning and not want to do it, I wouldn't do it. And I realized I was at this point in my life where when you're 20, you have all kinds of ambitions about what you're going to do. You know, my hero was David Copperfield and, you know, Penn and Teller, and had worked with those guys and seen those guys, and also realized I didn't have their work ethic, didn't have their determination. You know, I realized at the time I was about, you know, 22. And so realizing that, man, I'm the guy that talks about stuff but doesn't do things. And that was hard. That was a really hard thing because I said I had friends, you have friends in high school, you think they're going to do great things. And then not that having a normal job or family is wrong. I mean, that's wonderful. To be satisfied with that is wonderful because there's probably more fulfillment than anything else. But for somebody who wanted to kind of play on a bigger canvas and have traction in the world, I just felt like, oh no, I may be a flake. I may be one of those people.
Oh, okay. So then your realization is I might be a flake. How do you get past that? Like, what's the reframe?
What was the behavior?
What was the behavior?
Yeah.
So I was, one of his moments, I'm literally laying in my bed. I'm living in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm staring up at my ceiling fan as it spins like a cliched movie, but truth. I'm sitting there staring at my ceiling fan going, I'm very flaky. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I'm not happy. And I thought about it. I said, what's the problem? I said, well, I have all these ambitions. And people said, oh, you're very smart. You could do this. Well, I imagine they said that. But I had this ambition in things. I knew my ambition was way outsized for where I was in life. And why was that? I was used to other people, you know, prodigies and other people accomplishing a lot more. And I had people like, oh, well, you're in magic. You were performing at 18. So, I mean, yeah, but it was a lot of it was just really luck and circumstances, you know, really was. And I'm not trying to say that to be humble. Like, there are things I will not be humble about that I'm proud about. Other things like, yeah, that was luck. And so I said, okay, what's the problem? I said, number one is I give up if it's hard and I move on to something else. But the really hard things, you know, you really have to go make your way through hard things. I said, okay, what do I want to do with my life? I'm like, I don't know. I still don't have that answer to this day. But I had to say there, I said, what's my pattern? I said, well, I always gravitate at that point towards things that are public, entertainment. I knew that. Even though I went from magic to other things, that I always gravitated towards that. And I said, okay, you know, pick a thing. Like, what if instead of picking out my life's purpose, I just picked something that was kind of interesting and I worked towards that? Maybe that would make me happy. And at that point, I chose film. I said, what if I made a film? What if I made a movie? What if I made a movie, like a feature-length movie, but for like no money at all? Not even like $30,000, like whatever, like a couple $100. Could I make a feature film for that? Because that would be a big test of my creativity. It'd be a big test of me trying to wake up every day and have to get a thing done. It would be a test if I could get to the end of it. All I had to do was just finish the cut, and I would feel I've accomplished. I've never based myself on external goals. I've never did it in my life. I've never been like, and then Hollywood has to do this, or a publisher has to do this. I don't think those are healthy goals. I've never done that. It's always measuring myself by myself. So I set that goal for myself. Okay, let me choose film. If I can go make a feature film then I would consider myself, I'm no longer flaky. At least I know I can get things done. And so I sat down, had an idea, not a great idea. I storyboarded first. I drew 2,000 storyboards.
Wow.
They were not really good storyboards.
But still, that takes time and effort.
It was, you'd be like, okay. But yeah, I sat down, I wrote the story, I did that. I wasn't a writer at that point. I didn't start writing novels till much later. And so I figured that out. I wrote it around based upon every resource I had at that time. My brother was a police officer. I knew I could probably get away with shooting some locations in that city without getting into trouble. I'd sold my magic props and bought a video camera. I gave my magic props away, but I had a video camera that was an XL1, which was a pretty good camera. But other than that, I just based a script around that. Went out and shot it. Spent 6 months. I would call my friends in the morning. I would say, okay, let's meet at 10 o'clock so I didn't have to pay for breakfast. I said, let them go at 1 o'clock so they can do lunch. So I just figured out how to make the movie on the cheap and finished the feature film. And there were days I didn't want to work on it. Days I go I'm learning a lot more. I know this sucks, but I have to continue on. And so finished the film, edited it, got it into the Fort Lauderdale International Film Festival, premiered there, showed it in front of a crowd, full of my friends and family and stuff. And I felt, okay, let me go try to make another film. I'm like, no, directing's not my thing. But I learned this lesson at that point. Once I knew that I did that, that's when I focused on TV and stuff. So that was the point for me, was I chose something so much bigger than myself, but accomplishable, not impossible. And it wasn't going to be if I got into a film festival. That wasn't it. It was literally once I was able to say, this film is finished. And I have a story that's not quite related, but I want to tell you because it was just... You don't know the effect these things have. And you talked a bit before about helping people out or whatever like that. And I'd say a good metric is just you use that as a data point. Are you a good mentor? How do you know that you're a good mentor? Because somebody you mentored come back to you and said, thank you for doing this. And it doesn't have to mean that you have to all of a sudden have an inflated self-ego. You could say, okay, that's a data point there. That was good. But there can be other ways. Years later, 7 or 8 years later, I had a friend called me up, and she was a girlfriend of a friend of mine. She said, hey, my father passed away. Would you come to the funeral? I'm like, sure. Her family was from Peru. I'd met her father once or twice. He didn't speak any English. I didn't speak any Spanish. And so, but we still, nice guy, got along. And I figured I'll show up. So I show up to the service, and after the service, she says, thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's cool. She says, do you know why I asked you? I'm like, well, it's because it's your father. She says, no, but do you remember when your movie showed? I'm going to make this clear. My movie was not good. Mine was fine. It was fun. I made it for $200.
I still want to see it.
Yeah, people could be like, all right. But it was fun to have at a film festival. Local kid makes his movie, whatever kind of thing. But the audience had fun because it was just, cheesy, whatever kind of thing. And I remember her dad was there. And she goes, remember my dad was at your film? I go, yeah. Her parents had came from Peru with not a lot. They wanted a better life for their kids. The daughter did great. She had a job. She was successful. Very good. The son, had problems with drugs, got in and out of trouble, was arrested, and just caused a bit of a headache for the family. And she said to me, do you remember my dad who was smiling throughout the whole movie? I go, yeah. And I mean, he seemed to be a happier time than anybody because he didn't have to listen to my dialogue. And she said the reason he was happy, the reason he smiled, was because you go do a film, you present a film, and then after that you go on stage and answer questions, and you're all pretentious and stuff about this, and and then she said, my brother has been just a lot of heartache for my dad. My brother has been a lot of big disappointment for him. That night he pretended you were his son.
Oh my. Wow.
And that hits because it's like,
Wow.
Yeah. I still haven't fully unpacked that. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a good movie, but you can take for granted a lot of things in life. I've had parents who've been very supportive of what I do, and my dad's proud of my brother, proud of me, and proud of whatever. And when I'm glad that because he knew me, he got something out of it, but it is a thing. You don't know sometimes how the things hit. And I would say that a lot of the way I think about when you support people around you, you're part of a team. And we enjoy our teams in many different ways, and their win can be your win, not because it net benefits you, but because it's just because, good things can happen.
I have some follow-up on this. There's a few things. One, I want to get to him in a moment, but I want to go back a little bit to where obviously something got you out of bed every day to do things when you didn't want to do it. And that's what people struggle with the most, which is the willpower question, right? Which is like, how do you trick your ego or the other eye that's inside of you that's like, not today, I would rather eat ice cream. Like, how did you overcome that part?
That'd be a great t-shirt, by the way. But
Yeah.
Why not do both?
Why not do both at the same time?
I knew, to this day, I mean, I'm a big Steve Jobs fan, really big Steve. And he was a complex guy, and having now have known people that work with him and knew him and like to get a lot more of the story about them's fascinating. But a famous phrase that he liked to talk about was the idea. He was the first to say it, but I think that he was famous saying was the journey is the reward. And that was my first encounter, was listening to Steve Jobs use that expression. And you start to think about, what does that mean? And part of it can mean like, well, the suffering is a reward. Well, that doesn't sound very fun. But the journey is often who you're with. And so when I made that film, a couple of the people around me that helped me out were some of my best friends for life. And it was that experience of doing something with a team and a group of people. And that's the thing I realized is that, at the end of the day, you're going to be measuring yourself, by your experiences that are positive, and generally you're going to have positive experiences by yourself, but who you're with and the people you're around. And so if you have a really good project, a really great thing you work on, and you get to work with a great team, and it can be the people you work with, maybe you have great customers, maybe it's something, just a club or whatever. I think that's really, you wake up to say, I'm going to have some fun today, and maybe I'm going to be with my friends and do something fun. Maybe when it's done, I get to share that with people, and not everything has to be shared or whatever, but I'd say that was a big part of the reward, was the people you get to meet. And some of my best friends, closest friends I've made have been people where, when I did a Shark Week special, like you're traveling around the world, lugging tons of equipment around, going in and out of airports, going on zero sleep, and then, swimming with sharks. But you're with the team, working with one of those teams that works on Shark Week, these highly engaged, energized people. Like, that's just a great experience. And like, should have been in theory the most miserable production experience of my life was one of those positive experiences of my life. So what do I wake up for? I wake up for, one, to see what I can do, to see if I can push myself through and see, is there a better version of me after the end of this day? But also, do I get to be around other people doing cool stuff?
Did you trick that makes sense. Thank you for sharing. I would say, to Cyan's frame of flaky Andrew to disciplined Andrew, let's say.
Still flaky some ways, but yeah.
Was there a practice, and it's okay if there was, I'm just trying to see if there is a distillation where you are like, is it a friend that would call out, is it what
accountability
is the
person?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
were you just accountable to yourself?
We're trying to get to the yeast of the baking dish we're making, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I would say that it's a couple things. And part of it can sometimes be, and I'll say this too, that sometimes it's for the people you're going to meet later on. And I would say there was another fact that had to do with people at all, but certainly as you go on a mission, like, why are war movies so touching? Because you meet a band of brothers. Why are these guys brothers? And the story of that is people pulled from random places around the country, put together in going through hell, and then feel a bond with each other. And fortunately, most of us don't have to do that, but we can choose a bigger challenge than ourselves and go do that with it. So I would say when I first started, I had a couple friends that were supportive, but then I kept meeting interesting people along the way. And there's some people I've met and I haven't stayed in contact with, but I had a great experience with it. So I'd certainly say part of what was motivating for me was, I'm going to keep finding myself in more and more interesting rooms, and that certainly happened. Like, I went from a guy sitting in an apartment in Fort Lauderdale with maybe one or two friends who did not have any traction in the world. I use the term traction, feeling like I was a creative person that had no outlet. The world never got to see this. Nobody knew if I was creative or not. And then along the way, as you do things visibly, as you create things and you do things in public, as people see this stuff, you start to pick this up. And you also start to appreciate things that other people do. So that was the thing. But I'd say the other thing too was, after the film thing, I realized really what I wanted to do at that point is I wanted to try to teach critical thinking, which meant TV. And there are times where I would fly between Fort Lauderdale and LA and do the red eye. And I didn't want to, money was tight, so I couldn't afford to stay overnight. And so what I would do is I would get on a a midnight flight, Fort Lauderdale, fly in to LA, or leave like 6 a.m. Leave 6 a.m. from Fort Lauderdale, fly in, arrive like 11 a.m. whatever in LA, hop into a car, go to a couple meetings with different production companies, get done, grab lunch, go back to the airport, get on a plane, fly back, and by the time I got home was when that next flight was leaving. And I would be through the airport dead tired. I always wanted to try to get home before the sun came up. I never did. I felt like, Dracula trying to race home to do this. And I'd ask myself, how much is it worth for me to succeed? Or to not just see, but to know that I did everything I did. When I wanted to do TV, I gave myself 10 years. I said 10 years of waking up every day to do it. And at the end of 10 years, if you don't get a TV show, that's fine. As long as I woke up every day and did it, that's what mattered. That's what drove me, was just knowing that I'd wake. And I'd be walking to the airport, said, if I got a phone call from my business partner right now that said, hey, come back, Disney wants to meet with you, would I get back on that plane even though I'm exhausted? I'm like, I know I would. I would bitch and I would moan and I'd complain about it, but I would do it.
I think people in show business have some of the best work ethic I have ever seen. This is a recurring theme that I see, that if you want to make it, the show must literally go on.
Oh yeah. I when I was 22, I was kind of ready to get out of magic, and I got an offer to go to Japan to headline a show there. And so it was a show called like Sekai Show in a town called Minami, which was north of Tokyo, and it was this resort town. And this was kind of after kind of Japan sort of had its kind of economic, shift. So not all the things were open. They still kept the resort going, and it was a 365-day-a-year resort. So they had shows every single night. It was a 900-seat theater. Every single night there was a show. So when I took that gig, it was 6 months straight. When I say 6 months straight, I mean every day. Wow. Not a day off. When we had to renew our visas, we hopped on the bullet train in the morning, went to Tokyo, renewed our visas, came back, did that show that night. And sometimes I'd do 2 main shows, sometimes an extra show. I would always do a nightclub show, then sometimes a banquet show, sometimes 4 shows a day. And you have to make a decision, how badly do you want it? Like, how badly do you want it when you're working 6, and you can't just say, hey guys, I don't feel well tonight. I was the main talent in the show. I mean, not the main talent.
No pun intended.
Yeah, everybody else was more talented than me. Let me get very clear. But I was the magician, the featured there. These dancers are working way harder than I am. But anyhow, I didn't have a backup. And so you have to think about like that. You have to think about how you carry through. And then when, doing TV, when you're doing a TV show and you have $100,000 a day or more production days, you have to take care of yourself. And there is a lot of, I understand why stars get crazy, because everybody kisses their butt, tells them they're special, because they got to make sure they show up the next day.
Oh, interesting. I've always wondered, and I know this is a bit of a side tangent here, but when you're performing that many times, are you looking for the audience's variation sort of to make it more interesting?
Yeah.
Because technically you've got it down, right?
Yeah, you want to talk about time changing. So, for instance, for that show, which has to be this fast-paced show with a bunch of dance numbers, and I'm going on stage and doing my magic. It started off, we had choreographers choreograph the show. They had to bring in a second choreographer for me because I move like a chimpanzee, and it was just that bad to try to get me to fit on stage with that. At the beginning of the show, when we started the run, your first couple nights in there, you're kind of terrified by this, but then you're a week into it, 2 weeks in. By the middle of this run, what felt like a really, really fast time on stage, you can, so I walk the 5 feet from the stage to a prop to whatever, you're thinking about other stuff in your head, you're having conversations mentally about stuff, you can just drift whatever because time has changed. And I remembered when I worked for David Copperfield as a production assistant, watching him and how professional he was, and then I realized years later, I was talking to a friend who was working on the show, and I noticed how David he'd be in the back doing something in the magic prop, and he'd see his mouth moving, but you didn't hear anything. And I asked him, what's going on? He goes, David's got an IFB, he can talk to people backstage. I go, is he talking backstage? He goes, no, he was actually on his cell phone talking to somebody on his island about something, making sure the generator had enough fuel because a hurricane was coming. And I'm like, holy cow, the guy's doing business calls on stage in the middle of a magic show.
Whoa.
Because that's how precise it was for him on that. But I would say, as far as the audience thing, I would say I remember in the middle of the run, we would do this final thing. We'd come out and we'd stand before the audience. I had this stair platform I'd stand on top of and do my final bow. And one night we hear a group of Japanese women go, Andrew, 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 right? And start clapping, right? And the curtains come down, the dancers stare at me and go like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. And I looked down, I had my shirt was a little bit unzipped there. I'm like, I don't know, maybe that was different, So the next night, I'm like, all right, bring my zipper down a little bit more. Curtain comes down, curtain comes up. I'm there. Andrew. I'm like, all right, this is really cool. So the next night, this is not a gag. I tell you, this is totally true. I bring the zipper all the way down, okay? And curtain comes up, and I'm there. Polite applause. Nothing. Curtain comes down. The dancers look at me like, I guess it's over. I'm like, I guess it's over. I'm like, I had my run. I'm walking to the next show, and this older Japanese businessman comes up to me and goes, very good show. I go, thank you. He reaches out, shakes my hand. I shake his hand, and he tickles my palm. And I'm like, okay, I found the limit of where the zipper should go.
Wow.
Wow. That's funny. I do want to go back to the father, though.
Yeah.
I'm really touched by that story, and I want to make a point again about art and how when you make art, first and foremost, you probably should make it for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Which you did.
Yeah.
And then secondly, maybe for one other person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people think that in order to be successful, whatever art you make has to be seen by the most number of people possible in order to validate it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really not the point. And I would probably guess that your movie is going to reveal even more to you over time, that's just one of the many things.
I say this is true. I don't even know if there's a copy of it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I want to see it so bad.
Yeah, I am literally don't even know if there's a copy anymore.
Oh man, I hope there is. I bet there is.
But I would, and I have no problem embracing, I have books that I wrote when I first started writing stuff that I'm not like, I'm going to go bury those, because I like people to see that journey of the artist. I think that's really, like, when you go watch, you see clips from Tarantino's real first movie, and then you go, wow, then he did Reservoir Dogs. Like, wow, I think that can be very helpful. It can be inspiring to see an artist evolve. So I'm not trying to bury that, but,
Well, I'm going to be determined. I'm going to ask your wife. I'm going to go straight to the source, and I'm going to see if I can find it.
Yeah.
Just to capture.
See, my wife is a real filmmaker, though. That's the thing. So,
just to capture you said it's a $200 budget film.
that was videotaped.
That was videotaped, and yet we're sitting here talking about this movie and this image of this moment that
Well, the Zapruder film was, just a 60 millimeter cartridge. We still talk about that, and that's
of
not
course.
a good one.
What is your lesson there outside of make more? Is it sort of this put stuff out there and you don't know who it's going to touch? I'm curious if you were to synthesize that in a smidge. Tell me more.
If we were to write a recipe book and it was the title of the recipe, what would it be?
It would be Make Things. I mean, it literally, it's the people we can get very hung up on. I mean, there's something about putting something in front of the wrong at the wrong point in the wrong audience. But doesn't mean you shouldn't put things out there. And sometimes you do have to be bold. Sometimes you do have to put yourself out there, and you have to be kind of calculated about that. Mm-hmm. And you have to be kind of a bit fearless about that. But both my parents work for the government, right? So, if you wanted, the guys I knew who got into illusions when they were young, who were contemporary to me, they had like rich parents that could go buy the same magic props David Copperfield had, whatever. But I had something better. I had a dad that knew carpentry and would spend his Saturdays teaching me how to build things. And so I learned how to build props, invent props, and build things. But it also taught me to be very resourceful. Mm-hmm. So I never looked at a lack of resources as a limitation. And so when I wanted to make a film, I read a number of books and stuff by people who had made movies, and everybody spent $30,000. At first, why is that? Well, that's about the maximum that a 26-year-old could max out on their credit cards.
Oh, that makes sense.
That was the number. And I said, well, I know my first movie's going to suck. So what if what's the least I can spend, which really was the cost of the videotape, and then I could get that bad movie out of me and then learn, because you're going to have a lot of things learned from there. I've mentioned, I've had a couple younger people who I've given advice to about filmmaking, and some have listened, some have not. And some of, were smarter than me, knew what they were doing anyways, and some didn't. But like a lot of people don't realize that. So my point is, like, I'm a big believer in, like, get as many at-bats as you can. Yeah. You have as many times as you can, build as many things. And this worked out wonderfully for me later on when I first started writing magic books. When I wanted to become a novelist, I heard, you got to get through your first 1,000,000 words. I'm like, well, that's a lot of words. I wrote nothing but, I did nothing but write every day for a year straight. I did 1,000,000 words. I wrote 10 books in 1 year just to get through that curve. When I wanted to get into technology and I finally decided to learn to code after TV, after this, all I did was nonstop. Every course I could find online about building or coding things, I would build stuff. I'd build app after app after app, and I'd get it ready to something I could complete and probably show up at Y Combinator and try to get funded, and I wouldn't do it. It drove my wife nuts. She's like, when are you going to release one of these things? I'm like, I don't know. But that actually led to being at OpenAI and everything else like that. So my advice, like if you want to say, what do we call a cookbook? It's like, just make things.
You can just make stuff.
Yeah. When I lived in Japan, we had a kitchen and we had to entertain ourselves, and we had a fryer. And I actually became kind of the chef for the dancers. I didn't know. I didn't have a recipe book. Anything was in Japanese. I would just get in there with a fryer. I'd make weird fried dough, weird stuff. Sometimes it was really good. I figured out how to make these fried dough sandwiches. And it was just like, I'll just play with this fryer. And, you know, my wife will tell you that you give me a certain amount of ingredients. I'm not a good chef, but I will figure something out.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I think we're trying to distill a smidge, because you felt, I'm curious how you felt when you got shared that lens, that how the dad was impacted by your work, because you got a taste of maybe the ripples that come out of when you make things. So I'm curious.
I'm so lucky because, like, you know, I can show you photos of my brother in Halloween costumes. He's like, where did you buy that? I'm like, well, my dad wanted me and my brother looked like R2-D2 and C-3PO, but we didn't have costumes, so that was a teddy bear costume, that's a popcorn bucket, that's tinfoil and Lego parts we glued on there, and we look like something out of a Roger Corman movie, right?
Yeah.
So I was always grew up around that kind of industriousness. When I was in robotics, I would take about PVC parts and bicycle brakes for grippers and stuff, and so I just learned from my dad, but just pick things together, figure out how to build it, and you can, you know, MacGyver your way through things. And I think a lot of times people get so obsessed with, I got to have everything right. I've got to have the perfect cookie knife. I've got to have this. And that sometimes becomes an excuse to not do it.
It's kind of like, I'm going to work out, so I've got to go get all the yoga clothes and the workout clothes. And maybe someday I'll work out, but I'll look good.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people do that. We have a second reframe.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear this one.
And do you want to do a little bit different? Because I want to try something. Because we're trying to figure out our formatting here. And how we ask the questions, because it's not a typical interview or it's a discussion, or, you know, let's start with the reframe first, and then let's go backwards in time. So if you had to succinctly, like, think of the recipe thing, what is your reframe?
So,
and there's a bug.
I'm at South by Southwest, and I had been doing TV pilots that never aired. I did pilots for MTV. I did pilots for Cartoon Network. And I'd spent the last several years working in TV and producing things, having been under contract to Nickelodeon to do a show and to do stuff. And nothing ever aired. And I was always secretive. I've never told people I was working on this stuff. I just go out to Hollywood, go shoot a thing, and network go, that's great, but we're not going to pursue it. And I would say kind of at a low point, because I hadn't quite reached my 10-year mark of being in TV and trying to make something happen, but I'd been trying for a long time, and I didn't have a lot to show for it. And I was doing at the time, to make money, I did a lecture tour. I went through some magic clubs in Texas where I would go talk about magic, sell my magic videos and books. And I was with my buddy Justin, who's, you know, worked with me for years, and like, it was rough. Like, I don't think I made much money. And it's this kind of point where I'm at a point in my life where I would like to feel like I was accomplished more or whatever, but like, I'm in my 30s at this point. And it wasn't like I wasn't feeling great about myself, because I felt like on one hand I had done some really cool stuff and I had great experiences in TV and doing stuff and coming close to it, and no amount of regret there. Like, I was very glad for that, but I was like, man, I don't really have a lot to show for this. I had been lucky because, you know, I'd had in the early 2000s, I'd, you know, put money in like Apple stock and like had been able to support myself and live off that for a while, but then that was gone. And I go to South by Southwest, and my buddy Justin, who was on the tour with me, who also had been doing a podcast with my friend Brian Brushwood, they had been doing a podcast for several years, and they'd built up a really big audience, and they were doing a show. They'd rented out an outdoor venue to go do a big live show in front of their friends' comedy show and whatever, just goofing around kind of antics, and they had a really great crowd show up. And I was very proud. Like, I don't understand jealousy. I don't experience jealousy. I just, there were lessons to be learned, and it was this thing. I was very proud for them, but I was thinking about, like, why are they in front of a group of people? And why am I sitting here going, well, everything I've been doing has been in secret, you know, and if it paid off, it would pay off great. And I said, I'm happy with that, but I said, I need to think about what can I do that's more public, what's something more I could do. And so it was a very low point, and then I was very happy to see that, and a lesson to watch what happened when they do things in public and people could see. I had to go, because we rented our car, I had to go drive back to like Houston or something like this, and I'm sitting in the airport, and I'm reading my iPad about how the Kindle had just taken off. Like, Kindle ebooks were starting to sell. Now, I'd been self-publishing magic books for years. I'd write a magic book, come up with an idea, put out a book. I'd go print it myself. I'd go to Office Depot and staple bound them myself. I would do all of that. So I knew about self-publishing in the magic industry and, how to kind of get by doing that. But at the bigger publishing industry, I knew, well, you write a book, you send it off to 20 publishers, and they all say no, and then you're done. But now I heard about, well, now you could write a book, put it out on a platform, and if anybody wanted to read it, they could read it, and you could make money. You could sell it directly by being digital. And I thought, maybe I should try this. I'd been doing a podcast for years, so I had a few thousand fans on a podcast, so I knew I had a starting point to do something. And my advice to everybody right now, start a mailing list. Doesn't matter what you want to do. Make sure you have a mailing list. Just start collecting.
Know your customer, your fan, your audience.
Own your own distribution.
Yeah, but just have a point of contact, because when you're going to need it, it's not the point you want to start collecting it. Yeah. So anyhow, I decided, I read this, what if I wrote a novella? Because writing a novel sounded very intimidating to me, because a novel's like, 80,000 words. I'm like, well, I could maybe write a novella, because that's maybe like 25,000 words. So I started writing a novella there, and I said, okay, I'll just get myself to do this, because writing a novel is too much mental headspace. So I started writing a novel. I finished wrote a novella. It was like 20,000 words. Wrote it in 3 days, came back, just locked myself in my townhouse, and just started writing, finished it. Had my buddy Justin read it, gave me some notes on it, talked about it on a podcast, released it as an ebook, and it got really good reaction. People liked it. It's called Chronological Man. Excuse me, that was I'll remember the name of it in a second. Chronological Man was the second one that came out there. But putting this out there, was a good first step for me, because now I'd put a book out there. You have terrible autobiographical memory if you haven't noticed. Literally, people
we were warned.
Yeah. So anyhow,
okay.
That's fine.
Yeah. So I put the book out there, and The Grendel Shadows, what the book is called. I put the book out there, and I get a good reaction. It's sort of a steampunk sci-fi thing. I'm like, okay, I wrote something people liked. This was exciting. I said, okay, let me try this again, but let me try to write a novel. But I don't know how to write a novel, but I know how to write a novella. So I'm going to be smart. I'm going to write 3 novellas and put them together. In other words, Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 of a book. I didn't even realize that's really so that's what I did. I wrote the Act 1 of the book, Act 2, Act 3. So I wrote a book called Public Enemy Zero. It was about a young radio host who finds out that everybody's trying to kill him. They basically turn into bloodthirsty kind of zombies around him and trying to murder, and he goes on the run. Put that book out. I did a crowdsourced edit, which was an interesting experience. I don't recommend it, but it was an interesting way to try to save money on editing. Put the book, finish the book, release the book, did the cover. It's my buddy Justin Young in a hazmat suit on the cover. Put the book out there, and it did really well. It sold really, really well, and it was outselling other books. The beautiful thing about releasing stuff in an ebook form, nobody knows who the publisher is. They just look at the cover and what it's about. And my plan was, okay, I'm going to keep writing. And I'm going to try to become a writer. I want to keep doing this. So I said, I will read a book on writing, then I'll write a book. Read a book on writing, then write a new book. And so I said, I didn't know that I could be an author. And I even felt discouragement, because I'm starting in my late 30s to do this. And I even remember I knew Christopher Hitchens. And I remember once hanging out with Christopher Hitchens, who mentioned that everybody I know who's a great writer is also a musician. I have no musical talent at all. I don't know if you noticed today, but I was not singing, right? And that was a fear. I'm like, all these things are reason against me. But I said, if I just figure out how to tell a story in my own way, let me go do it. So that first year I wrote 1 million words, wrote 10 books. And what's crazy was, timing was great, was that book came out, hit top 10 thrillers. Next thing you know, I had Hollywood producers calling to try to get the rights to it. I had talent agents trying to see if I wanted to sign with them, talent agents. I eventually signed with my lovely agent, Erica Silverman, who was Hunter S. Thompson's agent, who worked with Michael Crichton, and so Robin Cook. So it just and I loved her because she was very upfront, honest with me. I had Hollywood, LA-style agents that were going to kind of BS me, which I don't want. I want to know where I am. I like good data. And so that was just absolutely kind of a life-changing moment in there. But there was another Reframe later. But that was the thing for me, was to say, okay, I'm not going to wait for permission. I'm not going to wait for a publisher. A lot of people people go, oh, you self-published. I started off self-published, and then I still tried to sell books. We never sold that book to a publisher. And so I kept writing other books, trying to get publishers interested. I had an agent, but we couldn't get anything done. And so to make money, I wrote another book about a woman in the FBI from a family of stage magicians who goes off and solves crimes. And I just released that as a self-published book. And then that hit in a big way, and I became one of the top 10 indie authors on all of Amazon. finally that book, some producers were trying to get the rights to that. They're talking to my agent like, yeah, we want to get the rights to this book. She's like, what book is that? Because Andrew, what's this book? Like, oh yeah, I had to write it because I needed the money, whatever. Like, maybe you should send it to me. I sent it to her, and that got me my first publishing deal. Sequel to that got me a Thriller Award nomination. Third one in that became an Edgar finalist. And the all of a sudden I'm getting nominated. I was a finalist for like, these big prestigious, prizes in, mystery and thriller, and go to New York and there's your book in the middle of a bouquet on top of a table. And I'm like, I still feel like an imposter, And it's funny, I brought my wife to one of the times when I was nominated for that, and she walks to the room and she sees in the center of this, we're at the Ritz-Carlton, where people announce their presidential runs and do this sort of stuff. And she's like, this is kind of a big deal. I'm like, I've been telling you this. But I would say that was, I didn't ask for permission. I didn't gatekeepers get in the way. The only person that mattered was the reader. If I could find readers, I could build on top of that. And that's what I loved about the Kindle platform, is that you can put out a book. You never have to have a publisher say yes or no. You never have to have an agent. You just have to find some people that want to read your books. And I love systems like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I love visualizing things.
Yeah.
And right now I just got a vision of somebody listening to you in the future and writing a book because they heard you.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to put this call out there. I hope that it happens. And if it happens, then you share it with Andrew and with us.
Totally.
That if you can take something from nothing.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And the formula is this, it's not just doing a thing. In any successful thing I've ever seen, you need feedback. And I think that sometimes people go into things like, well, I'll join an MFA program. Like, I don't really know about that. Being in a room with a bunch of other frustrated writers may not be the best thing of all. But you need some feedback. For me, one was to write it, read a book on writing to figure out all the things I did wrong, which is fine.
Which book do you recommend? Do you know?
I would Stephen King's On Writing is a great source.
Okay.
Robert McGee things on writing. I'm very practical, and I think just get a different sort of just the idea. Not even because any one of these people has the secret to it. It's just that it helps you be reflective upon that. And I know as a writer, it's a journey. I have some of my favorite books haven't been reviewed as well as some of the books. I'm like, really, that one? But it's just. You just want to get in the habit of having a way to improve.
Yep. And
that's the thing. Because if you spend so long on it with no feedback, it'll take you longer. And for me, I wanted to get good fast. So that meant, getting that feedback and using that signal.
I can imagine, to build on the image, I think there's your 1.5 recipes, the half of it is separate into 3. I love the chunking aspect of it. Mm-hmm. Sort of to make it a little more bite-sized. It's kind of like start with dim sum and then build your breakfast, kind of.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great step to the flow of, before trying to write the book, try to create three small things, and then maybe you mash up to build that confidence, which I love.
And the reason there is a science to why people think they have writer's block or anything they come into the block. And I think a lot about this because I write 2 books a year. Okay.
Wow.
So that's a lot of pressure to have to put out 2 novels a year on top of running a company, doing a bunch of other things like this. So it means I have to kind of get through things and think I don't have a lot of time to sit around and dwell on stuff. Well, I had to learn how to write in any situation. I've sat in casinos. I've written on my iPhone. I wrote, books sitting on a, tiny little bed in an apartment in Hollywood in the middle of production on a TV show. You have to learn how to get through these things. Number one, don't treat anything precious. But the other thing is too, is that you have to understand that there are clues that you actually don't know what you're supposed to be doing next. Like if you're writing a book and people go, this chapter, it's going a bit. It's like, okay, because you didn't ask if this is true, what else is true. You run in a company and you kind of go, why am I procrastinating? You have a bullet point there, but you actually don't know how to get from number 2 to number 3. And sometimes because number 2 was a problem, you need to go back to number 1 and go look at that. And you have to ask yourself, why is this here? That is one of the biggest, and we don't recognize it. At least for me, often I realized I didn't understand what the blocker was. I'm like, I'm just taking a little longer in this chapter. Like, oh yeah, because you didn't think out that thing. You didn't think out that step.
And how do you how do you uncover that? How do you unlock that barrier?
Throw everything away and step back. Just take one step back. It's get rid of sunk cost fallacy. For me, it's often just throwing out the last chapter.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll be in chapter 4 and I'm having a problem. Like, well, it's not chapter 4. It's actually chapter 3 because I took a shortcut or I did something. Like, let me just back up 2 and go there. And then go, oh, I get it. And I can be even with a business or software or code. You find yourself working sometimes all the way down a path and you get there and you kind of sort of know, I made a wrong turn back there. And you can try really hard to face it, to force it to work. But
I think sunk cost fallacy is something that gets in a lot of people's way. I think someone told me you got to kill your darlings. You got to kill your darlings.
Yeah, it's and I think that if I'm spending 3 days Like usually I have to turn around a book in like 10 days. So if I'm spending 3 days trying to think about something, that's wasted time when I probably would have been better off if I just went back and got rid of a day's work.
I feel like I needed to hear all of this.
Yeah.
Because I have been making so many excuses for my writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I've approached my book probably 5 different ways. And I keep getting what I call blocked.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you have a mission statement for your book?
No.
You need a mission statement for your book. The reason you need a mission statement for your book, in my opinion, and again, you don't necessarily need one, but I think mission statements are really important. Just like anything else, it tells you what you're doing, it tells you where you're going, it'll tell you when you're done. And then if you find yourself off track or whatever, you go look at your mission statement. It goes, this part of the mission statement, is this it? And a mission statement for me in a fiction book can be, this character is going to go on this journey. They're going to have a couple revelations. They're going to realize this about themselves. At the end, I'll know it's over because of blank. Okay, mission statement keeps you on track, because the problem is if there's anybody that's got enough life experience for 10 people or more, it's you, and still a young person. And I think that's one of the challenges for you probably writing a book.
I don't know which story to pull from to start with.
Mm-hmm. I would say,
they say go where the action is, and it's like, well,
No,
there's a lot of
action.
There's a lot of action.
I would say that I'm going to tell you the thing is, it literally does not matter. Choose any. Like literally, there was one of my favorite sort of stories, which I don't know if it's true or not, was that Germanic tribes, ancient European tribes years ago, when they would all hunt, when it got done hunting down, they couldn't find any more deer. When they're all done finding everything, they would take like a caribou skull or whatever and throw it on the fire. I'm getting all of my species wrong, but it's fine. They'd throw the skull onto the fire, and the fire would heat it up, and when it cooled down, it would crack, and they'd follow the crack where to go. And the reason that worked, in theory, was it was randomness, because it kept falling in the same patterns. Mm-hmm. And also, it was just a choice was better than a choice.
It's your dice.
I should roll the dice to figure out where to start.
Because you're gonna have time to tell all those stories, and you might go back and tell it. Don't feel like you're the only thing you have to risk at losing is your time. Just pick a story. The first novel I wrote, my novella, I just wrote that because I'm like, oh, this will be fun. It's not like, oh, this is close to me. This is my passion project or whatever. I wrote it. First book I actually ever wrote, though, was nonfiction, was How to Make an Action Movie for $99. Because after I finished that film, I said, man, this film's not great. I'm going to go to a film festival. I don't really want to sell the film, but what I want to do is sell people the story of how I made the film. And I sat down, and that was actually, the book was used in film classes for several years, because it was like, here's an idiot making a film. If he did it, you can do it too. And talking about stories, like I needed a wheelchair to use this, like a Steadicam thing. And I went to Salvation Army, and I got a wheelchair, but it didn't work. And I had to go back to Salvation Army and ask for a refund. I mean, it's kind of a low point, but it was filled with that. And I said, when I started to write the book, I'm like, how honest do I want to be? Because I had this image I wanted to project myself as a guy that has things figured out, is financially secure, has done things right. And I'm like, well, that's not true. I'm a guy getting by, living in a 1-bedroom apartment, having a fine life, but I'm not wealthy. I'm not the guy that I wanted to be at that point. I wasn't, I was a guy that was done with magic. A has-been in that at that point until I did TV later on, and then became a has-been again. But it was a point where it was not going to be flattering to me to have to reveal the fact that I was so broke I couldn't afford to feed my crew lunch, and that like a really good day for us was I'd take them to Costco and buy them $1.50 hot dogs, or we had to share a Big Gulp and stuff. But I put those stories into there. They were real, they were true, and that actually resonated with people. And I would say that was, but also for that book, I said, here's how I'm going to write this. It's literally going to be the story. It was How to Make an Action Movie for $99, and it was that story of that. Not about my cruise ship years, not about anything else like that. It was just taking that point in life and doing that. And it felt very exposed. It felt like I let myself blood out. It felt like I felt embarrassing to do this, but that's actually, I think, what made it kind of a good book. But for you, the sooner we get some book out of you means we get the other ones too.
That's true. That's very true. I love this idea because I've been writing the source material in a blog of just rolling the dice, and whatever it lands on is just like blog entry number 27, and I expand on it, and that's where it starts.
Yeah. That's a novella, and then you piece them together, and you got your novel.
Yeah, I would say with a thing to think about is, there's the book that everybody tells you they want, which is some place to start with, but it doesn't have to be the whole book. Like I think, you up until the age 20 is a great book. you know, and it's not the only book you're going to write, you know, or it can be, you know, you the day, you know, you got into, you know, investing or whatever. But I would say, like, yeah, I would pick a period in time or something and talk about that and then kind of go back. I mean, Michael Caine had written like 8 biographies. You know, I don't know how many, but he's like, so don't feel like there's only going to be one book. There's going to be many books.
I would love to get to where you are. So
That's great.
maybe I'll be the one
You're
inspired by the
You're literally
reframe
the
today.
audience.
Maybe it'll be me.
You are a lot smarter and have
Yeah.
a lot more agency, so I totally think this is possible.
I have a lot of agency, but sometimes it does not work in my favor.
Yeah. Well, just to and then this is a great, if you were to synthesize this piece of the recipe into, again, kind of because this is the thing, I know what science is going to practice. How would you anchor on this reframe? Is it just commit? Is it choose and commit to the bit, or what would your synthesis be?
Have a process.
Okay.
You have to. If you want to put things out in front of the world, which means you hoping the world will like it, and also means you want to. And if they don't like it, they're going to like the next thing. When I talk to my friends who are making films, I tell them, like, hey, listen, like, your goal should be to get done with this film, and then 2 years from now be ready to make a new film and not be still stuck in debt and stuck in the point, because you're only going to get better. You get better. Your lessons are going to be learned on the next project. And the same thing with writing. You know, the goal is, you know, not to rush a thing out there, but, you know, you should be done with this in 6 months. You should be done with this. You could be done with this in 3 weeks if you wanted to be. But you should literally say, hey, let me get this done in 6 months. If anything, because you have those lessons to learn. So I'd say, like, have a process, and the process should be get it out the door and learn from it. Like, how are you going to learn from it? And it doesn't have to be the enrolled people or your friends telling you about it.
Make a movie like what you did.
Yeah. And that can just literally, the lesson can be, I'm going to go watch, you know, Martin Scorsese's documentary in filmmaking, and then I'm going to watch my film, and I'm going to take it apart, and I'm going to make notes. Yeah. You know, I do a post analysis of it. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to wait for the feedback from the world about it. It doesn't have to be that at all.
Cool. I like that. If I were to synthesize that, I would say kind of create a deadline for your creativity. It's kind of like this idea of like finishing.
Or not even just a deadline, but
target,
I like the mission statement process, create a process.
Yeah.
Right now I don't have one.
I would
create a process.
Yeah,
and
think of I have a box.
Yeah.
I have a box that's composed of 180 days.
Great.
I want to use those 180 days to do a thing.
Cool.
See, I'm the master procrastinator.
I know.
And so that's the challenge I have, which is
you have a lot of
I work well under pressure.
Yeah.
And so I wait. I almost need a deadline. Oh, here's another hack. If someone would pay me like $10 or something, like I will do anything. I know this sounds crazy.
No. Accountability, buddy.
I have like a crazy work ethic when it comes to being paid.
Okay. Here's the deal. Okay. I think a great place to start with is a really good outline. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you can get that outline done in the next 30 days, I'll donate $1,000 to the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Really?
Yeah. If you don't do it, those kids are going to suffer because of you.
Okay.
Yeah, they won't have that wish,
it's on.
Man. I love it.
It's on. I love this. I love this so much. Challenge accepted.
All right. 30 days.
I bet I'll do it in less, just because of what it does.
A good outline, just a good outline. A good outline, which your outline tells you each chapter, you know what you need to do, and have a breakdown of that. Okay.
Okay. Cool. Will you give me feedback or no feedback?
I'll give you feedback.
Okay.
But I'm terrible at feedback. But yeah.
Maybe afterwards you won't feel that way.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
We have a small closing bit. We asked a couple of people in your life to, it's our small magic trick, but it's a few people in your life to express what they believe is a reframe they've experienced in you. So I think we'll just play them, and you can. I haven't listened to them.
Yeah, we never listened to them. So it's one of these things where we're all going to hear it together for the first time.
How deep did you go?
I don't know.
Very deep. No, I don't think I went that deep. We have two. We have two beautiful.
All right, look good. Okay, not he ruined my life.
No.
And
we'll just play them.
Not that anybody could say that.
No, nobody would say that.
All right, how you doing, Mike? So this is my story. To know Andrew, at least for me to know Andrew, is to reframe the concept of possible. Take you way back to when I first knew Andrew in high school, and he introduced me to a movie website called Ain't It Cool News. This is gonna definitely date me, but like that was at the time a really revolutionary website where, you know, they would review movies, but also people would leak when movies were being tested, and you would, you know, be able to get a sense of what was good and what wasn't. So the cool thing about Andrew is that not only was he somebody for whom would recommend movies to me, and we would talk about movies a lot, but then at a certain point, Andrew's like, hey, I'm going to make a movie. I'm like, what? Like, it's kind of ridiculous. And then next thing you know, we make one movie, and it's kind of a bunch of people talking and stuff, and it's funny, it's good, and I'm in it. I played Porn Boy, a boy who had a backpack full of porn, but it was a comedic role, so I appreciated it. And then he shoots another one, and this one actually goes to a film festival. And it was one of those things that kind of defined, I think, my friendship and relationship with Andrew, and really just my own sense of what I could do, what anyone could do, that success and achievement wasn't just something that happened to other people that had the right connections, that anything that you really wanted to do, you were only putting your own feet in front of the other one away from getting to your destination. And that is a reframe that to this day I am particularly thankful that I got, not only from somebody who has continued to be, you know, essentially family, but also at the time that I did, which was very young in high school, because I don't know what my life would have been without having that ability. So there we go. That is my reframe that Andrew Mayne gave me.
Okay, I'll give you a little context too. I've been teaching an after-school program since I was in high school on critical thinking, and I went back to the high school that I went to, and I would do it. And so, like one Wednesday a week, I'd go there and do that. This is going to sound terrible. When I met Justin, he was 15. I was 25, and so he was this super sharp kid in this class. And I just, you know, said, "Hey, he's smart." Met his mom. His mom was a super smart, super energetic lady, raising 2 kids. His brother's great. And I just kept in touch with him because I knew he was a person that was extremely funny, very bright, and then followed him through when he went to college, stayed in touch with him, whatever, and eventually went to go work with me. But like, yeah, I think he had, you know, maybe just graduated or whatever. But, you know, sometimes you meet people and you go, you know what, I'm a fan. I'm just going to keep following what's going on, you know, and you find people who are enablers too. And he's been extremely supportive of that. And so I was very, very lucky to have a friend like that. And when I started writing books, he was the first one to read my books and give me notes on that. And however I may have helped him, I got 10 times more out of that relationship from him.
That's so beautiful.
That's beautiful.
How do you feel hearing that?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to ask.
I mean, when I hear him say, who knows how my life would have turned out, I'm like, I don't know, could have done really great things, kid. I have been very lucky to have had people that have helped me out and been supportive that I'm not bitter about, and I'm very glad that he's felt that I've been very helpful and supportive to him too, and that's great. But I can tell you that however much he got out of that experience from that, I got way more. You know.
I think that's often the case when you are in a mentorship relationship. The mentor often is the mentee.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that they learn a lot from the people that they work with or help.
I found myself, I'm in a position now where like a couple times a week I'm on a video call with something, maybe a college kid that I met when I did a talk, or somebody whose work I found and said, hey, let me talk to you and support that. And I never really think of it like, oh, I'm a mentor. I think I'm a friend, and maybe I'm the older friend that has experience, because a lot of times it's like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I'm learning a lot from this. So, I've never really said, oh, I feel like I'm a mentor, but you do, if you're the older person, a little more experience. And I tell them like, hey, listen, I learned a lot by sometimes doing the opposite of my mentors, because sometimes they kind of didn't go where they should have because of that. So I'm mindful of that.
I'm shooketh by the theme. We think we unintentionally don't listen to the quotes, but the story. There's so much symmetry to what we talked about, and then to the impact in some ways that you had. Okay, we got one more. This shouldn't be surprising, but I'm excited. Wasn't this?
All right, I'm gonna ramble, so bear with me. So when I was a kid, I thought I knew what I knew. I didn't really see myself as a deep thinker. I had creative talents, instincts, traits that would naturally play a role into whatever I would end up pursuing. At least that's what I thought. I never thought about why I saw things the way I did. For example, like a person who lives a traditional lifestyle versus somebody who lives a non-traditional lifestyle. Simple things like that. I never really questioned what led them there, why they were who they were. I just felt like the path that was given to you, that is that. And then I met Andrew. And that was within days of moving to the US, which is a wild story for another time. But when we started living together pretty quickly, the more I got to know him, the more I realized that it kind of like reframed my thinking about what I thought I knew when I was growing up. So one of those light bulb moments happened during one of our arguments, or more like how I handle those arguments. And so from my past relationships or the environment I grew up in, I always felt like the natural way of dealing with arguments was when you fight with somebody, the next phase is silence, and then you ghost them, and then you ignore them, let 2 days pass, 5 days pass, and let the tension build until one of you caves and hopefully somebody apologizes or just kind of like move on. Yeah. So one day, after one of these fights, I was kind of like, he's not walking up to me. I gotta go to him and ask what's going on. And so I'm like, why aren't you talking to me? And then he just looked at me and he's like, it doesn't have to be this way. You can choose to do anything right now, and things don't have to be this way. That sounds very simple, but that kind of stopped me because no one framed it for me that way before. And forget anybody, I never thought about it. I never had that kind of self-awareness. In that moment, I felt like I didn't have to follow some old ingrained script that just because it was familiar, and that stuck with me. And then from that moment on, we still argue, we're not perfect, but that realization changed the way I approach conflict. Over time, I started recognizing patterns, whether it was like with conversations with friends, girlfriends, family members, and I kind of passed on the same piece of advice. Like, you don't have to choose to do that. You can break the cycle. And so it got me thinking about something bigger, which is what people now call NPC behavior, which I think it's a thing, but I'm not saying that people are NPCs, but I certainly think that there is a type of passiveness in life that when you just accept things as they come, you never question whether something makes sense or serves you. Life might not turn out the way you want it to. And so it's easy to default to patterns you've always known, to assume that things are just the way they are. But when you step outside of that and you force yourself to just look at something differently, I think that's where the real change happens. Self-awareness, challenging your instincts, realizing you're in the driver's seat instead of, just being along for the ride. I think that was a real significant reframe for me. And that's what changed it for me. And I owe that to Andrew.
Wonder who that was.
Yeah, how did it feel to hear that?
I mean,
did you know that?
She said forms of it. I mean, it's one of these things like, man, whoever that guy that said that sounds pretty smart. I wish I reflected that more often. But again, I was very fortunate. Like, my dad's not a guy that has grudges. My dad's not a guy I've ever seen my father lie. And he did like undercover work, which makes it really weird. Like, how are you doing undercover work and not lying? But I was probably a Brady Bunch episode once where they talked about never going to bed angry, and that stuck with me. The idea that, when you choose to live with somebody and you love somebody, you want to have good times with them, and you can have an argument or discussion, but at the end of the day, you chose each other. And even, when you're even with your family and you're kind of born into a family, you can choose how you behave. But really, when you're talking about a spouse, we can be mad at each other for the next 5 hours, or we can get done with it, and then we can sit down and have dinner and have fun and watch a movie and enjoy the night. If it feels like, and we have to talk about the thing, not to bury the thing, but literally let's talk about the thing, or what probably the stupid thing that I did and need to acknowledge, or whatever, and then get past it. And so, I don't I'm not wired for grudges, so that probably makes it kind of easy for me, but I didn't kind of grow up around it either.
It was powerful for me to hear.
Totally.
Very, very powerful. I had that realization at some point as well, that every interaction you have, you get to choose. You can choose to be angry, or you can say, wow, I'm gonna acknowledge I'm angry, but I'm gonna do something very different in this moment. And it's always surprised me, like the outcome when you don't do what's mechanical. And
I think it's very important to think about goals. So I've been on being on a TV set could be high stress, and I remember once working on a project, and I had one of the people working with me, one of the creative people, whatever, with me, and he had a long day, it had been a miserable day, and we needed to go do a thing, and he blew up on set, started screaming at me, right? And, I had every right to yell at him, was I stressed, whatever. I had every right to do that, but the clock is ticking. I got to get my shots in before the sun goes down. And the thing that I need to do is I need to handle this situation right now, which is to get him calmed down, to get to the next shots, and then find out later on what's really going on, what's bothering him. So my ego wasn't there. And I learned to really go think about what you really want. And we can go, if we're at a restaurant and it's, middle of nowhere and the service is this or whatever, I'll leave a okay tip, whatever, and I move on. I don't feel the need, I need to go back and tell them how I feel or whatever, because I don't have the time to care. And I think a lot of it is just realizing that, and with an argument, you can, even with somebody you love, and you'd be like, hey, listen, this is what bothered me. On a scale of things, this is here. So that's fine. But I just want to move on. Because what is your goal? What is your goal? And a lot of people get hung up, they want to fight every single battle. I worked for somebody years ago, was a mentor to me, but he had to fight every single battle. And I think that at the end of his life, he didn't accomplish anywhere near as much as he could have, because he felt like every battle was as big importance as the last battle, and it wasn't true.
Yeah, it's really powerful. I would say sometimes when you're trying to fight the battle, you're trying to prove that you're right. And then if you're trying to prove that right, that actually is coming from a source of not enoughness in another way. And if it's about a collective win, then it's how do we move on? So it totally resonates.
When I was a kid, I idolized, I wanted to be cool like James Bond, but I had no idea what that was. So I was going to be, I was argumentative, I was sarcastic, I was petty, all the things was opposite of that. And it took me a long time to realize, no, who's the most confident person in the room? It's the person you can scream in their face, tell them whatever they want, and they're like, okay.
Yeah. Great. Well, we're going to close. Our ritual that we have is a dice roll. We're going to riff a little bit. Normally, we'll throw it, and we can add something if you have something to add here. We'll give you an odd and even thing for you to decide on what you want to commit to and do in the next month. What do you think?
Month. I think month. And then I also wanted to know what he thought about Bobby McFerrin.
Yes.
But let's give him the dice.
But we're going to do this in a second. So the idea would be you choose something. We'll do this at the end. So I just want to show you the mechanics. Whatever added number, so this would be a 6, then you choose obviously the even, and then if it landed on an odd, you would commit on this air that we are creating together. Packaged air, as Bobby said.
Yeah, the last guest we did 6. And interestingly, what he landed on coincided with one of his reframe testimonials from his wife, so it was pretty interesting.
Okay, I'm kind of slow. Is there a list, or do I stay?
You can create any. So mine might be, Cyan's might be, if I roll odd, I need to write 30 short poems, but if I roll even, I need to write this outline of my book.
Okay.
So is there something, you don't seem to lack any ability to move forward on things you want to do.
Oh, there's a list of things.
But if there's something where you want a forcing function, this is your moment.
Or maybe it's call of your someone you love. Again, it could be something, it's your choice. So this is our way of creating energy into the world.
Okay, cool.
That's the piece. Do you want to talk about Bobby for a second? Yeah.
Yeah. So while you're thinking of that, I'm going to tell a little story about how I even found this thing that we went to. So I was, Bill Murray has a band called Bill Murray and His Blood Brothers, and they went on a tour, and they played at Great American Music Hall. And I was hanging out with some friends, and this guy just saunters up to us, and he's a little drunk. And so usually when you have a drunk person who's by themselves who saunters up to you in San Francisco, a lot of people run. They're like, no, not today, sorry. But I thought he was really nice, and he had an energy about him that was very kind. He had very kind eyes. And so he came over and he said, do you like Bobby McFerrin? And I was like, don't worry, be happy, Bobby McFerrin? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, sure, I like Bobby. And he's like, well, I work at the Freight and Salvage in Berkeley, and Bobby plays there every Monday. Would you come some Monday? And I was like, yeah, perhaps. And he's like, can I have your phone number? I'm like, sure. My friends are like, what are you doing? Giving that guy your phone number? You're crazy. But, this is maybe a reframe for people listening, is sometimes if you can assume that someone has good intentions, which a lot of people do, and you give them a chance, you actually could go through a magical doorway, so to speak, with that person. And so a few days later, or maybe like a week later, I saw, I don't know, like I was in a bookstore and I saw this little plaque that said, don't worry, be happy. So I messaged it to him because I realized I hadn't gone on that Monday. And he said, you've got to come this Monday. You've got to come. And I said, okay. So I went and I listened to a bunch of Bobby McFerrin songs thinking that I was going to go to a concert. And then when I walked in and sat down, I realized it was anything but, it was like going to church. I don't know how else to describe it.
It felt like church.
It feels a lot like church. And, but there's no discussion really of God, and that's not what it's about. And so I don't really want to give it away too much, but maybe we can kind of describe, or maybe we should give it away. Maybe we want a lot of people to come. But what was your experience of it?
I would say that I like things that, when you go to see something live, I want to see something live. I want to have an experience. And we talk about this afterwards. Like, I have friends, I know people who do like improvisational theater and stuff in LA and stuff. And some of my favorite experiences watching something magical happen on stage. It doesn't always happen, but it happens. And at first I didn't know what to expect with Bobby McFerrin. Then I see the group of people, they come out and they sit out and they all have tea in their hands. I'm like, is it going to be a Q&A? Because like, I don't know enough to really appreciate this. Although one of the best Q&As I ever saw was like Ed McMahon, and then I realized, it's kind of like a acapella sort of jam thing. And they're literally going to just improvise and do stuff up there. And I didn't know that it was a regular thing, because I'm like, this is a bit loose for like a touring show, and then I realized, then once I realized, this is every Monday, this is a thing they do frequently. I'm like, this is really cool now, because now I'm going to watch, and then you realize how talented, of course, he is, and everybody else up there.
Totally.
It took me about 15 minutes to really get to see the depth of the talent of the people up there. Then I'm like, I got to watch them play. I've never been a big jazz fan. But this was neat because of the vocal capabilities and stuff. And then when they improvised, then once I got it. And I liked it when it was the show they wanted to do and worked the way it was. It was interesting, but not as fun when other people went up there and said, this is my open mic night chance that I'm going to go use them as my backup band. They're like, no, that's not, but.
What did you feel during those moments where it was them aligning on that?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, the talent, somebody would pop up and sing or do something, whether it was, the Destiny improvising, making the trumpet sounds, or somebody else doing the beatbox and all these other things. You're like, holy cow, these are incredibly talented people. And sometimes, I come from the world of magic. I remember the Magic Castle, and some of the favorite times I have is, after the shows are done, sitting around somewhere and people just jamming and throwing stuff out there. And sometimes for people, you've seen this, is you come in as I see outsiders sometimes watch this going, holy crap, this is amazing. Because once it's like, I don't have to have the structure of a show. I can just show you what I think is cool. And that was neat. That was really, really fun.
Cool. Yeah. Pure presence. That was it for me.
Yeah.
Just pure presence, and challenged me to accept and
trusting
detach
me.
from the outcome.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
You say like loose fitting clothes. I'm like, if we're gonna be doing like, you know,
Well, I thought you might want to dance.
Might wanna dance.
Or, cut loose. You never know. Did you see the guy in the front row that comes every week?
I could not. I said,
He is something else,
I
right?
was like, this is the most Berkeley thing I've ever seen. This was amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Well, before we roll, I have an intuition. Rush included a second piece. I don't know what it's about, but I think we'll just close. This feels like a good closing amuse-bouche of a bite. I guess amuse-bouche. That comes out at the beginning, I guess. So, and a closing bite.
I met Andrew when he was in his 40s.
I have no idea what's in this one.
So I wasn't there for the moments his biggest reframes actually happened. But I know one thing. Something we talked about last night, and it's how, in this context, how he found his reframe. He didn't realize that we were talking about it in that context, but I got the prompt, so I had been thinking about it for quite a while. But he told me about how when he was in his 30s, he never truly believed that he could finish something he started. So, like if it was writing a book, pursuing magic full-time, he thought his charm, his personality, his height, with all of that, things would just automatically fall into place. And I know that feeling. So hitting 30 for him, I think, changed that. And over the years, he's had, multiple paradigm shifts where he recognizes the patterns and actively works towards changing them. But, that ended up working for him, whether that was making his first movie or self-publishing a gazillion books before getting an official publisher, or even, being on TV, which is a brutal grind. And he thought, for context, he thought that would naturally happen, I think. But he knew how the sausage was made and worked his ass off and did that. He built that muscle. So I think those were his biggest reframes. But I have my own version of a reframe he went through, which I don't know if he knows, but maybe I think he does. Let's see. So while he's always been someone who recalibrates, whether it's in his work life, like coding, learning something new every day, I think his biggest shift has been kind of embedding himself in my culture and my world, basically. So when I took him to India, like twice now, I think that was a significant reframe for him. Like, yes, he understood India theoretically, the culture, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the things. But being there, fully immersed, I think that was something else entirely, because I noticed this because I think that when he had to adapt to different cultures, like people, their schedules, their lifestyle, he became a lot more empathetic as a person. And I think that experience really deepened it. So he sees things from a more nuanced place, if that makes sense. But I feel that especially when I notice him noticing people who are struggling, whether it's in their finances or like their career or whatever. But there is another reframe, the one where I think I made him civilized. So when I met him, he was an animal. He ate straight out of cans of alphabet soups, or whatever you call it in America. His diet consisted mostly of Taco Bell, Burger King, Wendy's. Not that he doesn't still eat Taco Bell, let's be real, but let's just say he has adjusted to a more refined way of living. So, he goes to bed early now. He eats real whole foods. And it feels like I'm watching him exist in a very structured society. So, you're welcome. But I think that changed it for him. So.
Your wife is awesome.
Yes,
that's
amazing. That's amazing.
Any quick reaction? How do you feel about that one?
Two-part. One is, Rush, my wife, who's over here right now. She's Indian, and when you marry somebody and you fall in love with somebody, you're going to marry into a family, and that's not a reason to choose like, well, I don't know, their family, and that was a thing for me, was that we want to have kids and we have children. They're going to be half of what I am and half of what she is, and they're going to have this ancestry that's Indian, and I need to embrace. And their family is lovely. I mean, the people, all the families, all the aunties, everybody, they're absolutely lovely. Treated me with wonderful grace and whatever. But it's different. I came from my mom, my dad, my brother, and I, and we had 2 cousins we never really saw, never talked to. So we had a very small family, very, very small family, to all of a sudden being introduced to an Indian family that goes on and on and on and on. And so that's a lot of an update to deal with that. But yeah, I tried to embrace it. And they're also Punjabi. And so, when I first time I went to India with her was for her brother's wedding, and they make you dress up like you couldn't, like, oh, I'll just wear a suit. Like, no, I've got to wear the full gear, the headgear, all that sort of stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm in it. I'm going to go dance. I'm going to the dance floor. I'm dancing. And, the joke was that, that I'm more Punjabi than she is now, because I just jumped into it. I'm like one of those people, like, if I'm going to commit to it, I'm like,
I love it.
If I'm going to go swim with great white sharks, I'm going to go in and do it.
Yeah.
If you're into it, do it.
My wife's Punjabi too. I get that same thing.
Yeah.
I'm in it.
It's fun. The Punjabis are fun.
I'm just like, I'm going to play Shah Rukh Khan. That's it. Just go.
Yes.
And then the second bit about the Taco Bell. That's an exciting.
Moving on up.
Yeah. I'd also say that when you're younger, you can metabolize anything. As you get older, it changes. And she's certainly. It's one thing when you're thinking about, what your life is going to be like, but when you realize that, part of being a relationship is a responsibility.
Yeah.
And that you can be like, I'm going to do whatever my path. Well, she says she'd like to keep me around for a lot longer. So.
Cool.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you for keeping him around.
Yeah. All right. So what do we got? What's your dice roll?
Okay, so like basically odd number, even number, odd number is one commitment, even number is another commitment.
Yeah, and I'll be writing them down
toss.
in stone.
It's basically a fancy coin toss.
And I say this out loud?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to.
If you feel comfortable.
Yeah, if you feel comfortable.
Well, the audience will be like, what a jerk if he doesn't say it.
No. We can cut the bit.
We can also cut it. It's mostly for you.
This is for you.
All good. I know, there are 2 things I have to do, so that's not really important. But I would say that one of the things I've thought about doing, I've thought about writing, starting to try to do some kind of bio too. And if for any purpose, just to have it documented, whatever. Like my grandfather wrote about his experience in World War II. And my grandfather's like exceptional, individual, like stormed, the beaches, Normandy, whatever. Was a guy that had to basically push to be able to be allowed to be fighting the front lines, whatever. I met him when he was a Silicon Valley executive, whatnot, and reading a story about your grandfather, like, holy cow. And so I don't have any stories like that, nor stories like my dad. But I do feel like I should probably be writing more of these things down because, one, I have terrible memory about, like, she has to pull out a photo of when we don't, and I go, oh yeah, I remember that. Like, I just don't think about the past. So I certainly think odd, I should probably start writing my own, start cataloging the stuff down, not even for notes, for a book or anything, but just literally to start cataloging some things so I have those experiences. Can
you be a little more concrete with that? What are you committing to if it rolls? How many notes per month? What do we? I'm gonna OKR it for you a little. Yeah.
I'll do I've got to write an outline like somebody else at the table who's
okay. 30-day outline. Yeah. Great.
How about I match his well, let's see what the other role is.
Yeah.
But I might match.
All right. This is not to disparage the good people of Taco Bell.
Okay.
But to go without fast food for a month.
Wow. That was inspiring. I don't know.
That is inspiring. Okay, so I will match your $1,000 to your favorite charity, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
If you accomplish either of these in 30 days.
All right. Okay.
I'm liking this twist to the show.
Dun dun dun.
Okay. Well, please.
Hopefully we're both successful.
Yeah. Feel free to shuffle it a little. Yeah. Whatever you want. Yeah. Yeah.
Hold on.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah. You can do it as much as you want, and then whatever you want it to land on.
I don't know what I'm like. All right, I really like my nachos. If they bring the Mexi Melts back, I'm gonna have to, send some kid to Disney World. 6.
Even.
No fast food for a month.
Oh man. No fast food for a month.
All right. I'm excited.
So we're gonna check in 30 days.
Yeah.
How do we define fast food?
Yeah. How do you define?
How do you define it?
Yeah.
I guess it's no Taco Bell for 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we would just stick to no Taco Bell, and then see what you learn from avoiding Taco Bell, and whether or not you replace it with something else, or if you are done with it, or you have a celebratory taco.
Well, I mean, I have it like once a week now, so it's been I've downgraded that, you know.
It's the struggle's real.
I was an animal before.
I love it. Wow,
the struggle is
I
real.
never ate soup straight out of the can. I want that known here. I had to put it in the bowl, mix it with half a cup of water.
You were cooking, basically.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, thank you for spending a day with us.
Thank you so much.
Guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for spending this time.
I'm so grateful for your presence and your energy and your wisdom.
Do you snap your fingers?
Yeah, let's get him out of here, huh?
Yeah, okay.
And then I just...
3, 2, 1. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
That was so much fun.
So much fun.
I hope you had fun.
This is great fun. Listen, talking about myself.
Yeah. Hopefully it's a very different kind of experience. The thing I'm having trouble with, which we'll figure out through a few episodes, because we've now got 2 in the can, is it's not linear like what we're doing. So we've got to go back in time, back to the reframe, and then who you are now.
Yeah.
Like it's the positioning of that.
Yeah.
To get it to be more natural.
Yeah.
It's just something we got to work on.
Yeah.
I think you guys are on a great pace. I think too, it's just going to be, with listening to it, you're going to find out the pattern.
Yeah. And we'll cut it.
We decided, kind of like to your point, rather than overthinking this, get a studio, start making stuff, put it out there.
Yeah.
Timestamps will help.
Yeah, and then also just being honest that we're doing this on the very first episode. We're like, look,
we're doing it.
We're doing this like out loud, and it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think too is that I think like the Reid Hoffman stuff is overproduced.
Yeah.
But there is a thing to like at the end you do a summation without me, like, hey, here's the 3 takeaways we took away, like you guys doing a post conversation or something too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. That was great.
Yeah.
Now, do you need to do an outro again, or?
We should probably just do.
I'll hop
do you
off
want to just hop there for
Sure,
5 minutes,
I'm gonna-
and then we'll close.
Did you do the snap thing?
Yeah,
We did snap.
Okay,
Yeah.
We did the snap. So I will transport over here.
We'll transport, and then we'll do 5 minutes. Rush, that was so good. That was so. I'm so glad I played that piece. You're amazing.
I gotta say, that part of the show is my favorite. All of it. I mean, I love all of it, but hearing the.
But I think there's something there to infusing it with the
Yes.
rest of the bit, because there was a magic to him talking about. Okay, let's finish.
Yeah.
Let's finish this bit, and then we'll do.
And
No,
then
no.
we get a little bit of room tone.
Okay,
Okay.
great. So 5 minutes of just
Record
debrief.
your audiobooks.
What?
We record audiobooks, so.
Oh,
Are
great.
you taking off?
I gotta take off.
Okay.
Okay.
Text me.
Thank you.
On a couple things.
Okay. Thank you.
So, San, we'll just do a quick recap of
Okay.
just like
All right, so.
what was
so
that?
You do outro, and then.
We'll do 3 minutes of recap and then 1 outro, and then we'll close. Yeah.
Okay, and then just give us 20 seconds of room tone.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thanks.
You want to close it, and then we'll. That was so fun.
Wow. Oh man, I
Wow.
am so looking forward to trying on some of Andrew's reframes.
Totally.
And most importantly, like I have this book that I have been trying to get out, and I'm just stuck. And now I really feel, we'll see, but I really feel like he might have, poked something loose there to where I can finally.
He
move
unhinged.
forward.
He unhinged something that he reframed something for you.
Yeah.
Literally.
So I'm going to try that on. I'm going to put aside Lee's reframe for now because I'm still struggling with it, and maybe someone will help me with that one eventually. But I'm going to try this one on.
Yeah.
Because
What struck you about some of the things that he says? What struck you about Andrew Mayne?
I think part of what I'm struggling with is attempting to do something really hard before I'm ready. I need, instead of trying to write a novel, I should write a novella, or I should just try to write something. And I took a writing class, and they did make us make an outline, and I've made multiple outlines, but I think that what I got from it is I've just been a little too precious with some of it, and I just need to put something out there.
Yeah.
And, someone will tell me whether it's publishable or not, and maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think my takeaway was it might not matter.
It might not matter.
It's whether it's publishable or not is validation from someone else. What I took away from him was kind of his source in some ways is what if you're ready now? And what if what you put out is what you're meant to put out right now? It's not the only thing you're going to put out.
Yeah.
And what if that thing you put out impacts one life?
Exactly. And that's how we did this podcast too. It's just like, let's put something out there. It's not going to be perfect, and we're going to get better and better with time, and eventually we'll figure it all out.
Yeah.
But if we sit around and wait to try to get it perfect, we would have never done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's the lesson that I took away from it, is do stuff.
Yeah. I could feel your energy while he was saying that, and there was like a looseness that came. You were kind of wriggling, it felt like an earthworm wriggling through the soil when you were hearing some of the, when he was talking about writing, and you were kind of really chewing on what he was saying. So
I was just like, wow, I really needed to hear this. What about you?
I was struck by the simplicity in which I'm thinking a lot about Steph Curry these days. So kind of like hearing Steph Curry talking about shooting threes when he was at Davidson, I would imagine feels components of, hey, this is just kind of what I did. And not from a place of ego or, braggadociousness. I think I was struck by just someone talking about, who ultimately now has written so many things, just how one got unstuck and started writing, and how writing is kind of just putting a novella into 3 novellas, into a novel, into 2 novels a year. And I think what I needed here as well, I'm thinking about my cookbook for life experiences, and it's kind of not separating out this fear and just kind of taking the steps.
Can I give you the same challenge that you gave me?
Yeah. That's a great one. 30 days. We got 30 days.
30 days. You want to do it with me?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Well, if you do it, then I'll give money to your
Okay,
favorite charity.
okay.
So now we've got
great.
Triple down on that.
Amazing.
I think the way I summarize it is a marathon is made of mini sprints.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's I know that. And sometimes you need to hear somebody and see what they've accomplished. And I'm in awe of what he's accomplished, and
Same.
I am so honored to have had him as a guest.
Yeah. And to say it so simply. And all right. Season 1, episode 2 done.
Woo-hoo.